Welcome, everybody, to Portal to Another Dimension, the podcast that opens gateways to uncharted dimensions, theories, and is your passport to the unknown, and you've just stepped into the portal. I'm Drago Reid, your host and navigator through these mysteries that lie beyond the depths of our understanding and the unexplored territories of truth. So sit back and enjoy the ride as I peel back the veil of reality, where each episode becomes your portal to unlocking forbidden knowledge, the secrets within, and the keys to awakening that lies dormant within you. Buckle up, my friends, because everything you thought you knew will change from this moment on as I unravel and unweave the threads to the cosmic play in this convoluted multiverse. Welcome to Humans 2.0. Welcome to the new reality. Today is May 13th, 2024, and I'm broadcasting from the Citadel in Tampa, Florida. Today's guest is a friend and an awesome presentation speaker, man. His name is Barry Littleton. Barry was born awake with fragmented past life memories. He began having paranormal experiences at a very young age. These experiences included telepathic awareness, seeing or feeling ghosts, and various other inorganic beings. These encounters and some of the entities themselves had a very distinct extraterrestrial origin. That led him into a lifetime of research and exploration into both the metaphysical and paranormal fields. Mr. Littleton majored in psychology, sociology, and ethnic studies from Wichita State University. For 20 years, he worked with at-risk youths and juvenile offenders by utilizing the cognitive behavioral approach method. In 2010, Mr. Littleton had a tragic car accident resulting in 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries, along with a very horrible near-death experience. The event was life-changing for him. It was predicted that his condition would remain in a near vegetative state. Surviving this catastrophic event with mental faculties intact spurred him to come forward about extraterrestrial contact, paranormal, and near-death experiences. This has included emphasis on his knowledge of the cognitive behavioral approach and hypnosis for a variety of helpful modalities. He hopes to unite extraterrestrial contactees and near-death experiencers with similar encounters and interests across the racial color barriers that exist within these fields and communities. Since coming forward, he has had the pleasure of meeting awakened people from across the globe, which has been an amazing experience for him. His website is under construction, but has links to both his Facebook and YouTube page at barrylittleton.com. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, what's happening, Drago? Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
It's been a long time coming, man. I actually met you back at Disclosure Fest Stairway to the Stars conference in Las Vegas at the Luxor. It was like last November, and like we hit it off from the beginning. We're both like always seen alone, and we're always walking somewhere. And I seen you just always transy, and you're always walking back and forth. And I'm like, this is my time. That's Barry Littleton. Let's talk. And then it was like 3 days of like next level conversations, and we pretty much hung out the most out of everybody. Like, I don't know how
Yeah,
long we talked, but like the whole freaking weekend, man, it was awesome.
yeah, it's cool. We had a lot of commonalities, so it was really cool, man. Sorry, I'm holding this thing. If you keep hearing this weird deal, I might be a little older than you. You might not recognize that. Anyway, sorry. From a good TV show. Anyway, man, but yeah, it was really fun. Interesting thing about that conference in Vegas is that it was really, I got a lot of healing energy there and some healing things happening for me there. And it was not at all what I think a lot of people expected it to be. It was very positive, and the people there were really cool. I didn't encounter anybody that was over arrogant or, it was pretty cool. I thought it was good energy.
I agree. It actually, the show kind of blew me away, man. It put everybody in just the right places on like the entire convention floor, and then the casino, man, and then of course the after parties upstairs in the upstairs lounge, those epic parties, man. It's awesome, but like it was intimate. They had plenty of presentation rooms, and everybody kind of coalesced all around the same areas, man. Like, but the problem is, I think the Luxor is a little too big, and no one knows where to hang out because like there's so many places to hang out on that floor. But like other than that, man,
Hmm.
it was a good time. Presentations were top notch. I was I was there on your panel. I was there for literally your presentation, which was awesome. Everybody loved that presentation, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I worry that I put too many things together and smash people with too much information. But I think that's kind of important, and if people are paying to see that and try to get the information to them, you know what I mean? In a way, when you're in person presenting, it's better than YouTube and stuff like that. But I keep evolving that presentation. Like what I'll present the next conference we do will be quite similar, but there'll be more stuff in there. So, because it all ties together. I wish it was the separate things that I used to think it was, but they're not. As people, we like classifications quite a bit, but some things are not, you know, the separate things we wish them to be.
I like to call your style more like Laura Eisenhower's style, where basically she delivers a crap load of information really fast with a bunch of bullet points, and people are like, it happens so fast, you kind of have to shake out of it, and you're like, holy crap, I need to stand up and just clap. Like, oh my God. And she's always apologizing. She's like, I'm so sorry, I speak fast. I'm like, girl, just do you. Speak the way you do, and that's why people resonate to you, man, because like no one wants like a boring speaker kind of like reading the teleprompter from slide to slide. It's like the Visine guy. It's just like, yeah, this is the next step of the ufology, and like no one likes that. So people like Pat.
Yeah. Monotone, man. Yeah, like robots up there talking. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And something else is that I'll just be honest, keep it at 100 in these communities of like ufology and new age, especially ufology, you get these people that are absolute fakes that cannot, when you meet them in person, they have these big, huge platforms. When you meet them in person, they can't do any of the stuff they say they can do. They don't have the energy of somebody that can do that stuff. You know what I mean? And you can feel like there's a vibration. Like I knew there was some when you and I interacted. You have something I call Artron energy. So that means that's a term that I actually stole from Doctor Who. But we discussed this in person. I said something about if you had experiences, whether it's you're on board one of these craft or you've been around some of these higher beings that are more conscious, that their kundalini so high that you've been in their biofield, it does something to the cells of your body. It irradiates them in some type of a high energy way. And I can detect that on other contactees, and I think also it's how they tag us too. And I took that term from Doctor Who, Artron energy, because the TARDIS actually uses a wormhole as a power source, as a travel source. That's what a lot of these craft do, Drago. And when doing that, so you start getting it irradiates to one's cells when being in the presence of such technology or beings. Anyway, so that's just that energy. Some of these people that have these high platforms that everybody looks up to, people that tell people, hey, horrible advice like don't go into the light when you die because it's a reincarnation cycle, and then you're gonna blah 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 and stuff that they haven't normally even suffered a near-death experience themselves, like you and I have. All right, so they haven't seen the other side, they haven't dealt with that. They don't deal with a population, a database, a group of earthbound spirits or clients like that. They're just talking and giving bad advice. And the truth is, that's why I really like talking about you, or with you, is that you've done the work, man. So you know what I'm talking about, and that is the light is a part of it. The love and the light and the God thing, it's very real. And if you're crossing over earthbound spirits, you can't really get around that. And I say that in a completely non-religious way. It's a spiritual thing, it's personal, but the earthbound spirit thing is a real problem here.
There's a lot of them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and like we were saying, I'm convinced after doing the work that the earthbound population is as numerous as the living here. It's a trip. I had done this. I had done this this client, and it's been a while, a couple of years ago now, and they had this earthbound attached to them, and I'll find out where they joined at, and how and why. And this earthbound had said that they joined with the client at the hospital, and this client is fairly aware and knew how to protect himself to a degree. Okay, but when you go into surgery and things, some shields go down and things change a bit. And so this earthbound says, it was when they're in surgery, I was trying to help, and it will help me to go home. So I joined with them. And there were others trying, but none of them were strong enough, but I was. And then when I get them to cross over, okay, just before they go ahead and cross, I said, oh, by the way, you said the others that were trying to join, and it just happened in a hospital. Okay, so I said, um, how many others were trying to join? And then they say, well, there's probably between, about 30, 35 in the room, but they weren't strong enough. That's how many were trying to join with the client in the hospital environment, earthbound spirits. And the ones that have told me that they incubators, they jumped on the client in an incubator. It's like, my God, just food for thought. Anyway, sorry, man. We're just getting started. I'm going on about earthbounds and stuff. And probably we're supposed to be talking about.
Now that's perfect to segue directly into what we're going to talk about anyway. So, like, I was noticing there's parallels in QHHT, Dolores Cannon's method, where we'll put someone under and we'll figure out that sometimes these beings do attach. And I realized they always attach with some kind of injury. So basically, let's use the analogy of a little girl, 6-year-old little girl. She's living in 1934 United States. There's cars, they don't have seat belts. Not a lot of people have cars, it's for the rich people. Let's say this little girl was crossing the street middle of the night. The couple driving the car just got back from a party, they were drunk. They hit the girl. Let's say they hit this little girl on the left side, crushed her entire body. What I noticed is the way the being, the entity died, that didn't go to the light, through some kind of fear, it stayed back. And when that happened, it cut off the light where they can no longer have the option to go back to the light. So it's almost like they're stuck here until one of the 3 cycles happen, the precession of the equinox, the one that happens every 25,920 years. Each time, usually some kind of event happens and allows you to go to the next level. Then we have the grand cycle, which is 75,000 years, which is the mega one. And it all has to do with the conjunction of how our solar system rotates around, and it's mathematically perfect, and it's just like on this awesome orbit that's replicatable. So that's what's cool about it. But I noticed these beings, you might start getting pains in certain areas of your body. So like the little girl that died from the left side, suddenly the person starts experiencing pain on that left side. Let's not say that you found someone in the hospital like you were saying, and I'm talking about just a client. They start getting all these pains out of nowhere on that left side. You're going to figure it out sometimes that an injury happened to that person that basically opened up their light field that allowed these beings to come. And coincidentally, the way that being died is where it houses itself in your body. So it basically seeks the place where it was injured the most. I believe it's like a homing kind of beacon where it gets the most energy from, the most sustenance, the most healing from. But the problem is it causes physical pains to clients, and they don't realize that some of the stuff isn't just caused from environmental or from what we would call the world, and it's basically spiritual in nature. So through those observations and my studies with QHHT, I found out that people who have a lot of addictions, sexual addiction, alcoholism, these discarnate beings will hang out in all those areas. When women get raped, you have all these dark beings surrounding it. They're basically absorbing all that energy, and they're basically egging that person on to do what they're doing. It's very sickening. But this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing there's so many beings that didn't go to the light that I almost started kind of focusing on bringing as many beings as I can through a client to then send them to the light. Because imagine if we skipped like 20,000 years of physical incarnational years and we can just send them to the light now versus like this is their only opportunity ever.
The thing is that you just look psychologically and actually psychiatry, you've got the body stores different traumas. Each organ stores specific traumas. And I have found so much that earthbounds especially attach to places where people harbor that type of trauma. You know what I mean? And I mean, whether it be just the trauma that the earthbound itself had or the person had that had left their field open. And I mean, it's always a specific point. And then the earthbound becomes so entwined in the person's energy field that they only express themselves as negative behavior patterns. And normally the ones that kept them earthbound. And it destroys the client's lives. And then just to make it even better, to see how we got such a great scope of things here, and how fair it is for us, is not just that. We when we incarnate or are born, we are carrying, genetic trauma from our ancestors, our parents, our ancestors, but also from our past lives. I had a client that come to me over a left foot problem they were having that run up to their neck. And my first advice was, go see the doctor. That sounds like it's probably sciatic or something, sciatica. And they said, well, I did. And the doctor said they can't find out what's wrong. I feel like I'm holding something. So Spirit told me to take them through a regression, past life. And it was actually, I can't remember, that was maybe even lives between life. But they immediately started saying at that point, that's when I stepped on that bomb in Vietnam. And as I felt like it was hurt for a minute, and I was floating, and they started saying all these different things. That's when I only served for a year, and my mom was all proud of my uniform. My girl was pregnant. I was only 19. So I'd take them deeper, a little more deeper in trance, and ask, where did you live? Um, was it not Nashville, Louisville, just outside Louisville, and gave me their exact name. My name Charles Allen Smith, and I died in Vietnam. Yeah, I only served for 1 year, over and over again. Relieve the trauma, okay? Get the trauma out, and then process release the client. The first thing I do, I got on the Vietnam Memorial Society, and I typed in that name, Charles Allen Smith. Boom, there it comes out, man. And the only thing that was off was this individual was a female in this lifetime, maybe 32, 33, and saying that they said it was 19, they gave me the year 1965. On there it says 1968, I think, death, but it says mortar in Vietnam, body recovered, about 19 years old, man, 1 year service. I mean, you can't fake that stuff.
Mm.
And that shows how quickly we had the ability to reincarnate. And the work I've done so far, man, and I can only speak for myself, all right. But one of the things that did not hold water, as my mama used to say, this is Mother's Day. I don't really care for Mother's Day these days since my mother's gone. But since one thing she would always say, some things don't hold water, and something that didn't hold water is when I was hearing always constantly, and I thought that everything is a soul trap. There's a soul trap here. This is a prison planet, and how there's a forced incarnation here, and it's a recycle trap. And that did not hold up doing the work and against the data. It's not held up. And every single regression I've done, past life, every time they tell them they choose where they're going. The guide comes automatically, takes them through the current life, and there's always information there on the other lives, but it's this life. They incorporate that into the soul matrix, and then they choose where they reincarnate. I've had it so far out as an individual telling me I call the place they go to with the guide the place of translation and reconfiguration. And it can be a library, a garage, an office, somewhere where there's normally these ledgers or books that they'll go through one of the lives.
The guide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then at the point I've had one client that said they're on a ship. That's where this place of translation reconfiguration was, a ship that is actually looking at different universes. And when they start describing some of the universes, I know what they're saying is true. I've seen stuff myself and some during experiences, and some of the other universes look like broken shards of glass. It is what it is. Maybe not all of them, but some of them look like that.
They
This
often do
individual
that
looks.
in different movies and sci-fi series, along with the Marvel universe, how basically each fragment of a mirror broken could be its own universe within a universe.
Hmm, hmm, interesting.
I
And
think
they
they
use
show
the
that on Doctor
power
Strange.
rings to unify it. It's the rings. Just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, that's so many things are hidden in especially entertainment now. It's unreal. But It's just a fascinating concept, but I'm yet to have anybody said, hey, my guide's making me incarnate over here, or hey, the light's making me incarnate over here. God's making me do. I've never got that. I can only speak for me. You know what I mean? So that says a lot. That some of these things, there's some disinformation we hear in the media and these communities unreal. These people that are telling people that don't go into the light and stuff. That causes problems. You go in there and make the change, and then some of them, they start having the ability to come back. You've seen it too and help. It's different once you go in there and make your change, which is not the time that we think time. And man, I think just the other night, Ghost was on again. I can't help but watch it when it comes on. Great movie. When
Mm-hmm.
when he's walking out of the theater with her, and brother robs him, and the gun goes off, he's chasing after him. And it is until he goes back and sees her trying to resuscitate him, he started tripping. Remember, he started having a panoramic life review, seeing them messing with the statue and trying to put that up and that falling, and then he started looking, and the light starts coming. And he starts going, what is this? Looking at the light. And he started looking at the light, looking at his body. And he started running towards her again, going, no, no. And it stayed on for a while, and then it went off. Like a flashlight, like a switch, light switch. It went off like
Then
that.
it felt really ominous right when it happened. Like right when it cut
Mm-hmm.
off, it was like psychological.
I've had numerous earthbounds describe not going into light and getting away from it somewhat similar. Like one saying, it was by that field. I ran over in the field. I squatted down, and eventually it went out. I've not seen it since, though, and it's dark now.
And that movie is very consistent with what really happens in real life. If you've really had an out of body experience or died in these past lives, you see the moment you step out of your body, you're literally wearing the clothes you're wearing now. You look down, you're like, oh man, I'm still wearing my shirt, but I'm looking at my body wearing the same shirt, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's very replicatable no matter who's had an out of body experience. It's very consistent with stories. So people like me and you, man, we can use this technique forensically. Like we can take them to a point where they were harmed. Like I like a large number of my clients are female and a large number of them were raped. And a lot of those, they experienced rape where they don't know who did it. They blacked out, lost time, figured out through hypnosis that some of them didn't actually black out, that their mind fractured and they created an altar that would come forward and take all that abuse. And then the ones that weren't mind fractured, we found out that their consciousness stepped outside the body, and it was still connected to the astral cord, but it allowed the consciousness to be outside of the abuse. And we can use this technique to take the person to that moment, remove their emotional reactions, and have them identify who did it. We can't use this in a court of law, but this technique, no matter who does it, I don't care what style it is, if you're regressing them to the moment where they were harmed, they will experience the same thing. It does not matter what modality it is, because again, you're accessing the real records of time and space, the Akashic records, and you can't change those. That's what really happened. So like what we do is very transformative for people, man. Like to have that honor to take people into the light. The ones that were stuck here 10,000 years or 150 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But to be the one source of light to do that for them. And we had nothing, no expectations. And it was only because we are here to heal and transmute as much negative experiences as we can and help people see the truth. And like the biggest thing you can do for another being, if it's trapped, give it a doorway, open a portal, and you can send it back to source, man, where it can actually start living its life again and start planning its next incarnation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's it's important. It's important. And the fact that we're not told how much power we actually have is a shame, but especially when dealing with this. And it's always interesting because when you bring somebody out, that we look at, oh, that was real. Well, it's your subconscious, superconscious. It's it's amazing. And so often, like I'll give you an example. Ray Hernandez called me it's been almost a week and a half ago now. and we talked a lot about one of his books. I don't have it in here. It's called The Mind of God. It's the new book that's done by the CCRI uh, foundation thing he's doing, the Conscious and Contact Modalities Reality Institute. And it's it's very interesting what he's coming to and what he's saying about and coming to as far as the mind of God is actually where when we die, we go back to this repository that is a divine mind, and then it takes basically our soul life memories and it wipes us clean. But we could do this because we come back to experience more and to actually learn again. And it's voluntary. And it's so interesting because when dealing this, I've been, man, I started having experiences as far back as I can remember. So the first things I started when I started being able to read really cognitively, I started reading about this type of stuff. You know what I mean? And I started getting into like early high school. I read the Carlos Castaneda series and also the series of his quote unquote chalk mules that were part of his group too, like Donner, Tashir Ablar. Oh, what's the other lady's name? There's two other Tinashindi, Marilyn Tinashindi. I read all that stuff, man. And it's a very, very, in fact, a couple of times. This is very interesting. So, but when dealing with that and overall, what this Toltec system that was talking about was one of his books is called The Eagle's Gift. I'm going to do a video about this. It's called The Eagle's Gift. And what the Eagle's Gift is concerning that the way these Toltecs were seeing death and the universe was as a giant eagle.
The shape of it.
And then when we die, we go into the beak of the eagle. And when going into the beak of the eagle, it takes our soul life memories, our soul life experiences. And in that way wipes us clean. In that way, they developed a situation called recapitulation that was actually taking back all the energy from every instant you've had this lifetime and reforming it in your mind, in your spatial field, taking this energy back so that when actually this death force comes, the beak of the eagle, the AKA mind of God, as Ray Hernandez calls it, and his institute's calling it, it actually takes the recap, which is the surface, and then it leaves your mind, your soul tact memories, your soul life memories intact. And so when you incarnate, next time you incarnate, much more in contact, intact, not fractured. This is a technique. This is things that worth trying, and these are breathing techniques that can be used through pranayama that are things to do with the recapitulation. And how much energy do we live in everybody else? We're all pieces of each other, and we live in these situations, especially the ones of trauma. So I mean, yeah, and I'm sorry, Drago, my man. I told you in person. I'll say it again, man. Trauma walks around this planet like a member of the population. Good Lord, man. Doesn't it?
It really does, man. One thing I found out is in order to have very specific lives come to fruition, you have to incarnate into bloodlines that have trauma embedded in them. And there are specialized bloodlines that have stuff like pedophilia, physical and psychological abuse. And the point of incarnating in such a bloodline like that, like I did, was to try to transmute the previous traumas in my life so I can help heal the previous traumas of the bloodline. But this also allowed me to incarnate into a family that was in the military where I had the agreement to be abducted and put through the MK Ultra program and all the SSP stuff and but you have to make very specific agreements when you do that. It has to be very specific family lines that have this all throughout the bloodline. And it's almost like everybody knows that this is a holographic matrix, but I like to refer to it as like a video game, a simulation. You get to choose what you look like. You get to choose what characters you're going to play and what your attributes are going to be. And this allows you to come in at a very specific time and place of the space-time continuum where it's kind of like our horoscope, where we are in the precession of the equinox, how many planets are conjunct around it. And that's our energetic signature, and that's a portal. And we have to go in at that exact moment to come in with those horoscope attributes of like, I'm a Taurus. So I had to come in at a very specific time and place to have those attributes to fulfill my mission for all this. So again, the ultimate goal is to bring the awareness of the experiences that my bloodline has went through, because you know much you can heal. Like, how far does that vein go back through history, through timelines, through alternate realities, and see how many fingers or how many veins did it really create as like connected to this tree of life, these roots. And then one single moment can heal the entire root system from that point on.
Right on.
So one thing I would love to talk about is the process of what happens at death. Like
Mhm.
I seen that there was like a 9 or 10 step process that you laid out that involved stuff like death, liberation from the body, the gateway. People are really curious about what in fact happens after death and what they can experience and what advice you can give them for possible fears or some kind of questions that could be answered, because you deal with a lot of that life between lives.
Mhm. You know, I think a great deal of it, man, is that like trying to figure out how to answer that. For me, it's like, for example, I think when we actually go through the process of death, like when the last thoughts we have and things impact a lot. All right. And it has to a degree of, I think, like each one of us is somewhere separate. You know what I mean? When we actually go through the beginning part of the death process. And so in that way, and a lot of times I've dealt with a lot of these earthbounds, that is that they're so shocked until that they don't realize they're dead a lot of the time. Unless they see their body or go to their funeral and things like that, they don't understand, or they can't accept it, and they can't let go of these things that kind of trap our energy force fields into this third D thing. They can't let go of that. But overall, what I've seen is, a lot that say that the light comes and it's the loved ones that come. And I think it's the same when, for example, when I do an earthbound crossing over, release, rescue, whatever you want to call it, I can see almost immediately before the earthbound even identifies himself. Okay. And I can see a portal, and I can see loved ones there, or one or two, or an angel, whatever it might be,
You can see this
and
while you're giving the session to the client. You can psychically see this as well. Man, that's
yeah,
extremely
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And it's a trip because the earthbound, they can't see them. They can't see it until they process the trauma. And then, and I'm sorry, no one likes to talk about this. So you talking about the love of God, talking about the creator. And it's a personal experience for people. It's not a religious thing, it's personal. And it always was before we were born. And then all of a sudden, and it's without me giving the quote unquote, like you and I talked about, we don't care for hypnotists that are suggestive, over suggestive. And that's a real problem. So I never say anything. Eventually they start, oh, and what's happening? And they say, well, there's that light again. And then, maybe you have to let them get more love in, but then they'll start seeing their loved one standing there. It's what I just see. Like this, let's say it's a guy and this kid or teenager, you know what I mean? They see them. They say, well, there's my father, there's my son. Well, they've been here a long time, they want me to come with them. And sometimes they're scared to leave with the person they've been inhabiting. Sometimes they think they're helping that person. They're not. They're hurting them.
Yeah, do you know
Even if
beings?
it's unintentional.
Yeah, like I don't know how many beings that I've tried to pull to the light and they were suspicious. And sometimes you got to like coax them out to actually come up through space and time and speak and have a voice. And like, what I like to do is I like to let that being, I like to let it know that it has a spark of light of source in its heart, and it's more than likely unaware of it and it's never experienced it before. So the moment I ask them to bring awareness to it, they usually look and they can feel it. And then I ask them to expand that light outwards. And the more you expand it, the more it pulls them with that light mentality, and they experience something that wasn't stolen from the host, the person they're piggybacking off. It's direct source energy that connects to them, and that's part of who they are. And I'll ask them to keep expanding it. And some of them, they freak out because they think you're trying to trick them. And I'm like, can you look into me psychically? I'll ask them, can you look into me psychically? Do you have the ability to scan my mind and look for my intentions? If you do have this ability, I'll ask you to look into me. And if you see any way that I'm trying to harm you or trick you in any way, you're not going to find it, because I can see how you suffer. And there is a source of energy that's way more powerful than you've ever experienced. And this was a peek into that light. So this is your choice and your choice alone. If you want to parasite off other beings from person to person and never go back to your home, that's going to be your decision. I leave it up to them. Sometimes I have to battle them. And I have other techniques I use where I'll literally battle them. But a lot of the times they go to the light and it's with help. I'll always ask for help. But like, it's an honor to help send these beings to this light, because number one, I wasn't tricking them. And for them to actually get to experience source again or go back to their loved ones is what you call the gateway process, where they're welcomed by the loved ones. And then the next step would be the review by the spirit guide, which we'll talk about in a minute. But like, man, we're not here to deceive you. We're here. If you can look at us, you can remote view us. You're going to see that we are beings pure of heart, and we do not want to manipulate anyone in any way. And this is real. We are truly here to heal people, because people like me and Barry, man, we both had traumatic brain injuries, and we had to go through the dark night of the soul for that. And it never ended, because like, it still affects you to this day with a traumatic brain injury. And like, people always tell me, I don't see how you can have a traumatic brain injury because you don't come off as someone with one. I'm like, well, I mean, how does a person with a brain injury come off? It's like offensive when they say it. Kind of like, I'm in Texas, I was legally handicapped, like because my left leg, I broke all these bones. I had my traumatic bike accident, almost lost my left leg. And then if I ever parked in handicap passes, people would always talk crap to me. They're like, why are you parking in that spot? Why are you using someone else's pass? I'm like, I'm using my own pass. They're like, you don't look handicapped. You're not in a wheelchair. I'm like, man, there's all kinds of handicap, man. You have no idea what I've been through. Like, I have a handicap pass because I lost my memories and I can never remember where I park. So if I do not park right in front of the entrance, I will not know where I parked my car. So like, there's all kinds of handicaps in life. And like my left knee, like it gives me a lot of problems. And like, you think I want to walk through a whole parking lot from around the way at Walmart? No, I don't. I don't want to do that. But like, there's many levels of handicap, man, and people need to understand that, because like, just your journey, all the stuff you went through, all the four traumatic brain injury different parts that you had to go through, man. Let's talk about that. Like, how did it all start, and like what happened, man?
Suffice to say, I've had better days. that's that's for sure, man. It was in 2010, September of 2010. I was actually on my way to work, and I got hit about a block away from where I was going. And I had this little nice Trans Am, and it I wasn't wearing my belt, and I went through a bunch of the windows, including the T-tops, and I almost got ejected to the other side, but my foot got trapped on the brake pedal. So I sustained four catastrophic traumatic brain injuries. It was all at once. Each one of them that they said should have been was catastrophic as in terminal. And I had a hematoma to the frontal lobe, hematoma to the brain stem, hematoma to the quarter lobe, and I had what's called DFA, diffusal axonal,
That's what I
which is
had.
similar to shaking baby syndrome. When I actually hit it, my brain turned in the case. So
Uh-huh.
the swelling, the brain swelling was one of the things that was killing me. But that also would stop them from cutting into my head, which I think is why I'm still normal like I am now, or similar to, still cognitive like I was before for the most part. So um, uh, that during this time, I had a very definite near death experience. I saw loved ones. I saw my grandmother and her best friend and my uncle who had just passed. I mean, we had just literally buried him 2 days before I had this accident. And he's talking to me. My grandmother was there, and this wasn't like some vision. There's this old neighborhood my grandmother and him stayed in, and we're talking by this tree. Only thing off is the trees in the wrong part of the yard. And he's got on the way he was dressed, man. He had on he had on these like these bib like overalls and these sorry Birkenstocks and one of those hats that like is like a plant basket. You know, turn it over and wear it like a hat. He looked kind of ridiculous, man. You know, in that way. And so I asked him. I said, I said he says that I had crossed over. He crossed over. I crossed over. You just can't remember it right now. But if you get another accident like the one you were in, you'll be here with us. And he points to my grandmother, who never said anything. Her and her friend is standing back there, but she's just kind of looking around like an owl, kind of blinking like that, you know? And I told him, I said, man, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just something wrong with you. That outfit sucks, man. And as a matter of fact, I said, and I thought I slapped my chest and my legs and jumped back. There's nothing wrong with me at all. And he said, man, you're not all right, B. You're not even close to all right. You just can't remember it right now. And he looked back at the tree, he turned back at me, he said something else. And I can't tell you what that was, but it startled me, scared me, and it made me take a breath. And whoa, I came up in what is called, I'm sure you're familiar with, the fall risk bed in the trauma recovery. And it looked like a Spider-Man webbed it up there. It's kind of hard to breathe in there, actually. But that's what I had actually what they call a clearing out, which was where a brain patient remembers everything. Most things come back right then. And that's what happened to me. So for me, that was a near-death experience. Before my mother died, she had told me, she said, you say that like that happened to you in the rehab. She said it didn't. Whatever happened to you when you came out of that coma, while you were in that coma. Because when you came out, they told us that you were cognizant and you were cognizant, you were like awake, but you were just laying there. And every now and again, your eyes would open, just roll in the back of your head for like maybe 15 seconds or so. But they said you were awake. And then we started finally mumbling things. You started talking about Purple Angel and my Uncle Reggie, that her brother that died. You kept saying their names again and again. She said, whatever happened to you before you woke up there. So
How
it's
long were you
interesting.
out?
I'm saying this because chronologically, it's hard to tell, where the healing, what happened when, and how my brain was responding to external stimuli versus what I was experiencing consciously in a chronological fashion. Because what I saw just before previous to that, it was these angelics. And, I see a lot of representations of angels, and these were not, first of all, these are not corporeal beings. They were like these thousands, hundreds of strains of light.
Like
Okay.
filaments of light?
Very bright. Yes. Different colors of them. Okay.
Almost like
Very
fiber
bright.
optic, where it like do they pulse or is it a constant light?
It was constant light and it
It's
was bright.
blinding.
And I really have the feeling they were toning it down, because the only word I can use is regal. And, there's a term in the Uranta book called, as they describe different orders of angelic, both on earth. Uranta means earth, on both on earth and cosmically and universally and cosmically. And they talk about a certain type of angels that are not a type of archangel, but they call them super nanophim. SCP, super NAPHIM, super nanophim. And I believe that's what these were. Okay. And I think if they would have been not toning down that pure love frequency I felt from them,
Would
we
have
don't
ripped
think
your
of
body
love hurting
apart.
like that. I think it
Yeah.
would have burned my body up. Yes.
Yeah, that's what it's
So
like. It's like it's too powerful. You have to like you almost have to acclimate yourself. Like me being in the programs, if I wasn't hybridized, I couldn't be around a lot of these beings because the human body it's not compatible with these higher energies because number one, that when they come down, they have to almost downscale their energy. Some of the ones that's non-corporeal, the non-physical ones, when they come down, they got to project only a small percentage of what they are. And sometimes that can be too much because it's like the light of God. It's just like turning on a light in the universe and the earth disappears. You're still on the earth is still there, but the light is so bright you can't see nothing. Everything's that's like that's true power, man. And it's the
It,
stuff I felt, it's very overpowering. It's very
yeah,
emotional, like you say, like
yeah.
love energy.
And and I have no doubt. I had hundreds of people that came to see me in the ICU. I was in there. I was in a coma for 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, and then it took about probably oh 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks before I had this clearing out. And but even before I wrote who I was, when I say that, some people say, "But I came and saw you during that time. That it seemed like you were punch drunk, though, but it was you." I said that was a brilliant performance by a gifted actor. So that was I was scrambled eggs, man. But I could still see these angelics, these supernanif in my mind's eye. They wasn't present anymore, but I could still see them and feel them. You know what I mean? And what's interesting is even after that, during the recovery, I all my life have been able to hide from people that I'm a medium and a psychic. And it's interesting because keeping it 100, every medium is a psychic, but every psychic is not a medium. There are two different gifts. And that's why dealing with these earthbound spirits through hypnosis has so much tripped me out at first, because I can detect a lot of times a dead person that's attached to the inner field, the energy field on the outside. But these ones on the inside of the energy field, they're so entwined from that point of trauma on into the energy field that they're hard to detect, and they're expressing themselves as behaviors. It's a different thing. You know what I mean? And so it's in that way, it augmented that enough to where things started coming in so strong that people I've known for decades, man, most of my life, started detecting this on me. So, started asking me questions and things that got really odd. I was getting busted. It wasn't long after that I wound up getting coerced to do an interview about my contact experiences. And here I am talking to Drago Reid years and years later.
Yeah, when we were talking at Stairway to the Stars, you had told me that it was overwhelming to have these abilities when you walk through life and you see these physical beings on people, and you almost have to ignore them because once you bring your awareness to them, it can be kind of problematic for you because it's almost like they won't go away. And you had looked into my field and you see that I did have an attachment. You said a name. And I was just like, holy crap, man. Like, just the amount of psychic ability you need to have see that and not be able to really turn it off. Like, that must be like, yes, you could say it's a superpower, but it's also a curse because it's like, if you can never truly turn it off, man, like, how do you reconcile your life where you're surrounded by all these other beings and no one can see them?
When I was a kid, and I think this happens to a lot of kids. At 7 years old, I got attacked by a spirit, a ghost, what was a haunted house that my uncle was renting. And I know now that I'm older, I know this thing was trying to join with me, I think, and it couldn't. And so it wouldn't be telepathically telling me to get out. And it, like, when somebody comes up, it was those jerk football players would come up behind you and surprise you, give you a bear hug or something. It's like when you're constricted like that, you inflate automatically. And that's exactly, what happened to me. And then I started getting assaulted telepathically. Get out, not welcomed here, feeling hate. You know what I mean? In a room that was already cold anyway, in this house, in the basement. Or my mother's going, "Are you all right?" I said, "Gotta get out of here." But it doesn't take much to be one of these adults who's some type of a pedophile, some sort of felon or whatever they might be, pervert. But it doesn't take much for one of them when they die to turn to something even worse.
Mhm.
So that and what that did, Drago, where I'm bringing this up, is because it kind of scared me into trying to wish my abilities away. So, oh God, please take it away. I don't want to experience that. You know what I mean? And then that may lead you into like partying, doing other things, just try to shut it off. And I was having these encounters too, and that just kept going on when I was a kid till I got about 13th, and they stopped for about 13 to about 17, and then they started again. So that's the difference between childhood experiences and adult experiences. The adult experiences, somebody's with me several times. It's one thing I could tell you, hey, I've been having these weird things. I woke up on these ships when I was a kid, and I'd be seeing these ships, and I've seen extraterrestrials, I'm pretty sure. But nobody, and I had all the stuff happen, but no one would believe that. But it's different when somebody's with you and you're out somewhere kind of remote, and these ships come up, and then you're suddenly missing like 4 or 5 hours of time. And after one of these experiences, when you've been in the, you kind of mentioned the frequencies of some of these higher beings. They emit something about when being in some of their biofields creates what the gurus called Shakti Pat. That's what it felt like to me, which is when the guru touches the apprentice and now their chakras turn and Kundalini releases some type of enlightenment.
It'll like shoot up your
And
spine and it feels like it's an explosion through your light cells.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that happens when the biofield of some of these beings. And then when you're not in their biofield anymore, not in their biofield, it gets fragmented. And the further you get away, when you're dealing with this vibration different on board the ship between you and them, and they're slowing themselves down enough for us to meet partial way. But the ships I've been on, I get sick, man. We're not designed to really be there, not for long. Okay. And then so when that happens, they can meet us kind of halfway. But then the further you get from the event horizon after this event is done, the further you get from the event horizon, the more fragmented and the retention of memory fades. That to me was very disturbing, because at first, this happens and I'm looking at the other person with me, and we're talking all this stuff. We're trying to get the information's there. We're just in the presence of technology and beings. I was trying to get back to town, 10 miles out of town, trying to drive real fast so I get to a tape recorder or to some notes, something. And by the time we get that 10 miles to town, she's looking at me going, "What the hell just happened?" And we could still see it, but it was fading. And then at least you start thinking, because the stuff you're in the media, oh no, did they wipe my mind? Did they take something like that, or screen memories? That all starts coming to mind. And it's interesting because you've dealt with the negative part of encounters, and you represent that as well. And you had both, but I know you represent negative too. But it made me really examine my experiences, because I come from what's termed the air capital of the world. I grew up there. And so there's a big Air Force base right on the side of our town, like 10 miles from where I lived. So, man, I went through continuously trying to see. That's why I got interested in hypnosis, because, it's one thing when you're missing, like when I was adult onset experiences, 4 experiences that all off that there were 4 hours of missing time. Okay. And that's over 20 hours. And 3 of them, somebody else was there. And that type of delusion is not shared, fortunately. I think if nothing else, it's for that. But anyway, so just the thing of but that makes that vibrational difference, the lack of memory, those things, it becomes very, very disturbing to a point, even if you've had positive encounters, And now I've come to find out that, okay, you're the one person I can talk this about. So, well, I talk to you, period, but I mean, it makes sense here. Okay, so I have this experience that I call the acid rain experience. And it's when I was in the 6th grade. I wake up one night, I don't sleep good anyway, and after those encounters, really don't sleep good. Insomnia at the yazoo, my friend. I think you got it too. We just walk around Vegas real late at night, man. But anyway, so I woke up and I was on board this craft. And on board this craft is, yeah. Well, I already interacted with this individual, and it looked like Yandar. What I'm kind of seeing in my mind, Yandar, but he's putting a Z on it, Xandar. So I use the name, and most of them don't have names. Names are classifications most of these star beings don't have.
That's more
something
like
else. Something else hard to accept. It's even hard to accept that some of these beings are strictly coming from consciousness. They're not coming from another universe, another planet. They're coming from consciousness. What we would call the Akashic records and things like that, but consciously they still exist. Anyway, sorry. Back to the acid rain experience. On board this craft, though, there's not the ships I've been on. They don't have windows because they're organic, but they do have like these screens.
You explain to everybody what an organic craft is, because a lot of people think that most ET craft are these mechanical, made of metal kind of stuff, and that's not what true ET craft are like. That's more like primitive, human, lower dimensional kind of stuff, because you see that a lot of the craft is made by thought or organic. Like you said, you can have nanites 3D print your ship and it can change it with your consciousness, your thought. It can actually reconfigure itself in real time, and depending on what you want to use it for.
The ones I've been on board, the organic component, like they'd give me was that, it putting in my mind, because I ask questions, and, these star beings, they answer your questions before you can formulate all the questions even. Very interesting way that not just telepathy, but telethought. And what they're giving me is that there is a compound that involves, one is metamaterials from planets that are devoid of Van Allen belts and atmospheres. They're bombarded by solar radiation unknown to us. Okay. And those are metamaterials that are mined from there. Then you've got a fungal component, like a mycelium component. Okay. There's a fungus component that's involved. Then you've got, then you've got a quasi-crystal compound.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting when you start looking at what our science is now doing with 3D printed quasi-crystals and the new configurations of lab-grown crystals.
Which contain photons of light in the crystals.
Yeah. We start dealing with squeezed light and higher concepts like that. Okay. Then the other would be the DNA from the crew, which I think involves this symbiotic thing, their connection, maybe even Kundalini, because some of them are giving their life energy to power the craft too. Okay. And what you have is this compound. This compound is grown over a wormhole, a mako, which is really what black holes are called, is makos, magnetically eternally collapsing objects. I'll talk about it at the conference we're going to do. But
basically the hard drives of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. You remember that right on.
And we can get into white holes too.
That's cool, man. You pay attention. I appreciate that. But they're grown in that way, and in space, maybe even deep space for all I know. So when if you want to think of a shipyard, think about when you see a mushroom patch circle that's similar to these shipyards, and that
so like the neurons of the brain, the mycelium stuff.
Yeah, I underestimated another thing. I underestimated some of these as space organisms, how sentient some of these craft are. And why I was like on these craft, some of them, and I'm walking around, I'm not being escorted or anything. But by the same token, I'm getting so sick, I'm about to pass out. So I'm not much of a threat. But you know what I mean? But by the same token, why was I not being escorted? Because one is we've got craft that are like some of the animal population on this planet, perhaps even Sasquatch. They have access to the race memory. And when I give an example of that, like my mother would jump on me when I was a kid, I would feed these crows all the time in the neighborhood, and they would always gather around me, and she said it was weird, and my grandmother used to do it. But when I go back there years later, the crows there, it couldn't be the same ones decades later, but they responded very interestingly to me. And I think it's because their offspring still had the race memory of me feeding the others. So in that way, we have craft that are they're able to not just scan the race memory, but our soul life memories too. And we don't know how old some of these craft are. We don't know. I don't know. You say, hey guys, how old are the craft? I didn't get that when I was doing these experiences. So that I don't know, but they're space organisms and a whole different type of life that we're dealing with here. You know what I mean? So it's when dealing with contact and the different modalities of contact, you have a ship like what I just described that comes to Earth and starts communicating with the tree system for the internet type of a deal. And that's important because look at the symbiotic connection that the mushrooms have with trees. And if you cut off the stalk of a mushroom, what does it look like? It looks like a type of a saucer craft. People, when I talked about this I came forward in 2014. Despite what people think, Drago, I didn't just wake up a few years ago. I didn't just start talking a few years ago. I came forward 2014. And I started talking about organic craft, and so people started laughing at me. I talked about until NASA suddenly puts out, oh, we're going to start trying to building mycelium houses on the moon and on Mars, and we're already using it in the infrastructure of bridges and other things in cities. And everybody started laughing then.
That would make sense because it can be used as a data hub to transmit and receive information, because like mycelium drives they literally connect with like what you would consider Laniakea, the universe, the root system, where you'll notice that a lot of the planets in our suns, they're directly connected to an actual root. So it's almost like that filament you were talking about in the ET point of light where it starts to glow. That would be like soul in our solar system, our sun. And that's how in like the SSP stuff, we can jump from a sun to a sun to a sun because they're all connected to one central root system. No
Hmm.
one
Hmm.
thinks about stuff like that. And it's replicatable with the mycelium stuff because you realize that the universe is just one large mind. It's a large map of a neural network. And what we'll consider another solar system is basically another neuron of information that we can pass from neuron to neuron, and we can have instantaneous communication across space and time, kind of like quantum entanglement.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, which is all instantly connection. Yeah. And it's a trip because it took me a while to accept even like the craft I was on board were able to actually generate, harness their own makos, their own wormhole, their own black holes, and then select the one of the most coherency, and then change their coherence, their configuration of pattern to match the destination of their universe they're going into
Like a
through one of
frequency
these
change.
wormholes. Yeah, yeah, and
Figure out
that
what the
it.
frequency you want to access. It's almost like you're changing the radio station because where you want to go exists here and now. There is
Mhm.
no distance like they say it'll take 70 years to get to Mars. I forgot what the math is. It's stupid because we can get to Mars with some of the project stuff in literally like 45 minutes. Like it's a lie. It's all a lie. Propulsion physics is a freaking lie. It's all for the public. It's all stagecraft. While they run classified physics and classified technologies, and like we've already been on the moon, man. We've already been on Mars. We've already been all the other planets, and like we're the planet with amnesia. Like Graham Hancock would say, a species with amnesia. We've been lied to. We've been part of the cosmos for billions of years. Since just in this solar system or just in this galaxy alone, when the Draco invaded Lyra, and then they went to kill everyone on Lyra, and then everyone on Lyra had it then spread to everywhere else. We went to the Pleiades, we went to Sirius. That was the two biggest hubs we used. We went to all these major planets around the world, and we had to have refugee camps established on this from these freaking stupid Orion wars, man. And like the entrance as part of that Laniakea kind of root system is Orion's belt. The central star is one of the main portals into our system. And they weaponize that portal, and like it's always guarded at all times.
I had I do all these remote viewing shows with Jessica Jones. I'll
I was
jump
going to
on there
bring
quite
that
a
up.
bit, and I give her these blind targets, which for me to me seems so damn unfair because it's just a massive of numbers. It's just some numbers that are tuned. It's bizarre, okay, but they're blind targets, and she nails them like every time. But one of the ones I gave her were actually, and if people really read the research and read science for real, look at the stuff that the guys from MIT, those engineers from MIT are saying, and some of those quantum physicists, they're way past do portals exist? They know they exist. They're trying to weaponize them.
Yeah.
They're
They,
talking about
they,
it.
they
Okay,
do
there,
that
there
paint.
papers, there are papers written about it. And so I gave her as a blind target a couple weaponized portals of Earth. Okay, that's what the target was. She had no idea. But when she's getting this data she's getting is hitting on the sun, the stuff about the sun. And these cats are trying to weaponize the sun through the port, trying to go override the portals there to weaponize the sun itself. And when people start really looking at what Michikaku and other people talk about, these type of civilizations, type zero is us, which is true, still using fossil fuels to destroy our own planetary sphere. At least they're making it seem that way. Then type one is you start doing the parent star becomes the prime power source. Type two, you start dealing with the fabric of space as the power source. Type three, they start using these black holes, these makos themselves as power sources. And that takes us into a whole nother thing with the Akashic records, which most people cannot tell you what they really are. Besides what Edgar Casey said, that it's a records of space and time. People can't really tell you what they are, though. How? And what they are is what I explained talk about in my presentations a lot. which is the Makos, the black holes of the universe. As you said, I call them, they're the hard drives in the universe. And what the Mako actually do, the black hole itself, if you have the accretion disk around it, but inside you've got this Mako, this magnetically eternally collapsing object. And what that is the mechanism that holds the actually memory. Okay. And when you have something that passes through the black hole, like this pin here goes through, okay, this crystal goes through, and what happens is it makes a perfect copy of that crystal on the surface of that Mako.
Horizon.
Okay, yeah. And what that is, that's called the quantum hologram. Okay, and the quantum hologram though wraps around this Mako, which is inside the inside the black hole, but it looks similar to the accretion disk. Okay, so when you get to the inside of the Mako, you've got the current universe all the way to the outside, like the outside of the accretion disk would be the beginning. So I mean, so it's a very, very important when dealing with that. That is the Akashic records, and they function quite similar to brain waves, quite similar. All right, and it's these things that are called microtubules. Microtubules are throughout our bodies, but for this, the brain, the microtubules of the brain are spherical. They occur, and you have with these Makos operate on these conscious waves, these quantum conscious waves, which actually are spherical too. So we can access the spherical Mako with our brain waves.
That's why I like to tell people.
Yeah. That's how you get there. It's not warp 10 in the Enterprise. It's consciously. You know, the speed of thought. You know, and I've mentioned before when I talked to Rudy Shields and them that took interest in my experiences. I asked him, "What do you think the speed of thought is?" And he gave me some proton electron experiment that's beyond my knowledge. But he said that showed that they think it's around 100,000 times the speed of light. So that means even that's a whole nother thing going on there. The speed of thought is almost instant, and we're dealing with this consciously. But you know, the materialists right now don't want to hear that. They need the nuts and bolts. They need the things. That's one thing that SSP is good for. It gives them that. You know what I mean? But I know that also SSP and the way that they're bombarding people with these directed energy weapons and putting people in this hive mind with brain computer brain to brain interface, it's really intense. I'm not saying that explains all SSP contact. I'm not saying that at all, but it is a portion of it and an attempt to rewrite the contactee narrative. Contact like I have does not get talked about a lot. It doesn't go over well. It's not in the mainstream. A lot of people listen to me because I'm not talking about. Yeah, and you know, like the thing with Ray, and you saw that the Ray, they did that. The other book is the Contact Modalities book, Beyond Reality, and they put out a survey that was like a 4-phase survey all over the world that got like over 4,000 participants, and it's one of the best formal contactee surveys I've ever seen. These are people from Harvard, Rudy Shields, Dr. What's it? All of them did that stuff. Now, what's interesting when you look at the graphs, the one about what type of contact did you have, the graph is skewed positive, is huge on there. Opposed to neutral is smaller, negative is a small amount. And you look at the media, it's not what you expect at all. So it shows how they're giving us, and you know what brain entrainment is. They're giving brain entrainment. It shows our own power. We may have some beings that no longer exist, okay? These type 4, type 5 civilizations out there that no longer exist, but they still exist within the Mako, within the quantum hologram, the Akashic records. So they access us consciously through our conscious brain waves. But we're so entrenched with negative contact, anal implants, reptilians, grays, all that, which do exist, okay? But that's all we hear about. We're so entrenched that you may be having a positive contact and you're actually warping our thoughts can warp fields of energy and actually change the experience you're having. You know? That's real serious. And it's not, not for all of us, but it happens to people. And then you've got technologies that they're using to bombard people to make sure you have negative experiences. And they're targeting the people that come in here with that Artron energy I talked about. You're already tagged before you get here. and they start doing things, hitting you with this. I during this. Sorry, let's reverse, man. This acid rain experience. Okay, on this craft, I'm seeing these other craft that is over some type of snow-capped mountain range. Never seen anything like it. But these other ships out there look like they're sucking up clouds underneath them, and they're spitting like light is coming after that. And this being, this insectoid, is floating over these deck plates that I'd met before, actually, but I didn't recognize him as this. He didn't appear to be an ancient before. He's floating, and he's telling me, putting in my mind, so, the acid rain for your planet's very bad, and we're trying to tell me why it was. We're trying to reverse some of the things. We're having problems with it. And I never even heard that term before. Acid rain. What?
Like chemtrails mixed with the water, and that's what's turning it acid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole thing, and they CFCs are calling it then too. And I never even heard of that. And I spent so much time with other things like where are you from and the stuff he's telling me you won't understand. Go 700, 800 million light years out, and then beyond the space time continuum. No, I didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean? Things like that. So focus on the third and fourth planets outside of Jupiter. Or I'm sorry, third and fourth planets outside of Pluto. Those are
That
our
was part
jumping
of the
off bases.
that's some of the you gave Jessica Jones that idea for her to see if she can view that, right? The
Yeah, I gave her.
Transneptunian planets.
Yeah, yeah, trans-Neptunian objects. And
Yeah.
at that time I had this experience. I'm the presence being. I'm trying to think back to it real quick because what if I'm being deceived? Like I tried to follow astronomy, and they hadn't. I don't know if they even found Charon yet, Pluto's its main moon. And then it takes years later they have trans-Neptunian objects. He's telling me you haven't discovered them yet. So what if that's a lie? You know what I mean? So anyway, but later on I found out these trans-Neptunian objects. So I gave those to Jessica as a blind target again. Both of those ones where he said they've got names now, these trans-Neptunian objects, these third and fourth, and she's seeing these things on them. But she knows she kept seeing this energy field, and talking about this target, this ticking bomb. Talking about Earth, man. And she was talking about this field of energy this being was telling me about. There's a field of energy that goes from Saturn to Mars to Earth
Moon.
and the dark side of the moon. It's just like similar to an electrified scalar field that we come in here. It shocks us to a degree and aids us in our loss of our abilities and also of our soul life memories,
Are you saying
which
it's coming from
we lose
Saturn?
anyway. What's that?
Is it coming from Saturn?
It starts out there, and that's what they kind of put in my mind. It starts out there and then goes over. And
It's
it's
funny
interesting.
because you can see.
It's interesting because to me it made me look at Saturn like it kind of does look like an antenna when you look at it, you know. And I know there's so much about the black cube of Saturn and all that stuff. I didn't go that deep into it, but when looking at that and how many moons it actually has, especially ones like Eclades and ones like that, it's quite interesting out there, you know. And that was long when I was a kid, man. I come across when I started being able to ride my bike to the library. I started I got guided to books, and one of them would have been The Rings of Saturn by Norman Bergen. Another would be by, I believe it's Raymond Bernard. Somebody Else is on the Moon. Okay, it's the moon. There's old books that were in there, and that one with the Raymond that that Bergen book that's become famous because he talks about these black people getting off of a spaceship in a naval shipyard.
We like to call them melanin dominant beings.
Yeah, that's what I always call them. Yeah, that but he talked about in that book, and I was a kid then, so it was hard to understand some of the telemetry he was showing. But he talks about these ships that are like miles long that he believes in the rings that are actually mining the rings or creating the rings.
And that
So
was from the Voyager 1 photographs. There was like 45 plates of photographs that were shown, I think, in his book.
yeah. And didn't he have something from Pioneer, like Pioneer 11, 10 or 11? I don't know. He's dealt with that. And Hatteras Childress has a book, Alien Archaeology, that was really good. It covered some of that. But people don't seem to remember the Pioneer 10 and 11 probes. They were before Voyager.
And look where Norman came from. He was like I think graduated Ames Research Laboratory. He was on like the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Like, I think he pioneered the setting design criteria for the airplane thermal ice prevention and like, developing the roll stability for airplanes and crafts and stuff like that. So like he actually joined Lockheed Martin before it was Lockheed Martin. It was actually called Lockheed Missiles and Space Company. So like he had a unique kind of investment in that. And there he was the manager of planning and analysis for test flights for the Navy Polaris underwater launch missile system. So like he spent like 13 years at Lockheed Martin and like served as a senior scientist, like all kinds of stuff. He worked on satellite stuff and like that's a major insider, man.
You know, he did that interview with what's her name, man? Makes to be at that conference, Carrie Cassidy,
Yeah.
and he's saying that these melanin dominant, these black people got off this ship and that they're really tall. Okay, which you hear so much when you start dealing with melanin dominant extraterrestrials, which these fields and communities don't want to talk about.
Isn't that stupid?
Okay, yeah. And people get irritated when I bring it up. Like this, like an even playing field. Are you kidding me? So not just when I was coming, when I was a kid, not just I'm not seeing any contactees that look like me outside of Barney Hill. I didn't see no contactees look like me. I didn't see any aliens that looked like me, any extraterrestrials. They didn't look like the ones I was experiencing, but none of them were ever melanin dominant black. The Pleiadians, I thought every Pleiadian looked like Fabio and Christy Brinkley. I was
And like
looking for the
Nordics with
red
blonde hair and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I was looking for the red Ferrari,
Wearing blue
man. That's the
jumpsuits like
red.
when you were 13 in sixth grade.
Man, I remember I was telling you that I did this joke like years ago, and it was I posted this thing back in the '90s. There was this thing called the Fabio workout where he's working out with this chick, and
It's got
he's
to do with
going
him
like that
moving
with
his
his hair.
hair. It's
Yeah,
like
he's
he's
going that all the
his
time.
hair.
Yeah, he's going like that. And I put down. It was real early in the morning. I said, "Man, I'm wiped out. I just did the Pleiadian workout." And man, some people got mad. Yeah, man, Barry, that's not funny. Some of them have black hair. I was like, oh, black hair. Anyway, man, but I think when dealing with these type of things and these type of different contact, it's really important that we get the whole spectrum. Because I mean, we got to deal with non-humans, let alone still tripping on the fact that we can't find when different races are coming here and interacting with different populations and getting that centralized and figuring that out and putting all this together. This is a tapestry. We've got to build the tapestry, right? And that's why I don't disqualify. At first I was turned off by the SSP thing because I had people telling me, "Oh, you just got accepted. You were part of DARPA. I remember you." No, I wasn't.
What is up
I
with
looked
that?
into my experiences when I told you I come from the Air Capital, and I was talking to Arkeem about this the other day. And man, when I started finding out too, and I was, because I was missing time, that leaves you uncertain. Even if it was a loving experience, it seems positive. What if there was some trick going on? What if it was the G-ment? You know what I mean? Big Brother. What if it was that? So I looked in. Then I read. I was still in high school, man. I think it was maybe no, just after. It's like about '94 or so. And then Carla Turner. I read her books. She read that first book she put out, Fringe, I think it was, and she was having those horrible experiences talking about virtual reality scenario technology. I had experience with that where the beings are telling me some of that type of technology had been distorted by lower entities, lower civilizations, and was used to deceive people. So I knew what she was saying was true. I was like, did I get deceived? Am I suffering from screen memories? That's why I started learning hypnosis. It was not to hypnotize other people. I was trying to get missing memories, missing
Same
time.
thing with me, man. Like figure out my traumatic brain injury, man.
How much time are you missing from that?
The first 13 years of my childhood.
Oh wow, wow, wow.
Yeah,
Are you
so
missing any
my
from?
my diagnosis is traumatic brain injury with po- traumatic brain injury post amnesic disorder with retrograde amnesia and a form of savant syndrome.
Oh wow, wow, wow.
So my TBI actually it really messed me up, but it also gave me abilities and it really increased my IQ and it gave me this ability to see faster than 99.7% of the entire population of the planet. I process speed faster than almost anyone on the planet. So it's almost like the ability like Doctor Strange has, where he closes his eyes and you can see these scenarios, this one after another, like thousands of scenarios, and you can figure out
Mm-hmm.
like the answer. That's what it's like. And like it made me be a high probability predictor where I can almost predict what's going to happen in extreme detail. It's kind of like the future of people. Like you can look into someone's eyes, you meet a new couple, and you can energetically see who's cheating on who. It's just like so many abilities I got from it. It's freaking insane. But like having
Uh-huh.
traumatic brain injury, people think you're just cognitively disabled, but no one really thinks about all the benefits it can produce.
Hmm.
Did you get any benefits from yours?
A great deal of stress, man. Only thing I will say is, that when I came back from my near-death experience, that part, people always said, "What do you experience all that?" I said, "That doesn't even matter because it's not as cool as what you see on TV." But I would say this: before that ever happened to me, I tried to kind of live my life by quote unquote the golden rule. Man, when I come home from school as a kid, man, GI Joe and then the Thundercats on top of the golden rule. So I
Yeah.
try to actually live by that, all right, and treat unto others, the whole thing. But despite that, and even being aware spiritually to a degree, okay, when I died, I can tell you this: I greatly, massively underestimated the impact that our relationships have on each other. That's all there really is. That's where it's at. You know what I mean? I underestimated that to a great degree. So that way, and it gave me an appreciation of my life even more, which I already had. You know what I mean? But I mean the appreciation, and also appreciation because if it was not for the accident, I would not be I would not be talking about this. I never would have been doing this work fully. I talked the game like I was gonna, but man, I wasn't really gonna do that. It's not conducive to your career by any stretch. So in that way it's been interesting and kind of a blessing because I was always obsessed with my experiences. I was one of those people on YouTube who's watching everything, but didn't comment on nothing. I was, kind of like I spy on there, that type of a guy. But then this happened, and it forced me to come forward about this stuff, and it kind of just threw me into the front row. Is what happened. But man, it is what it is. Some of these things are in the hand of the Creator and not ourselves. We have to go with it. I need to hit my head again to figure out I need to do this work and keep. I worked with juvenile offenders for years and years, and also at-risk youth and some mentally ill adults too. And man, I come from the cognitive behavioral approach therapeutically. I worked with great cognitive behavioral therapists and got trained in that system, went to school and learned that. So that's what and it works good on clients, adults or humans, but man, it works even better on earthbound spirits. I'm not talking about the demonic. I'm just talking about the grandma, grandpa being crossed over because they couldn't let go of their house. You know, that type of a deal. So anyway, sorry, I don't want to get onto that, but point being that all these things kind of, that it kind of put all my life together in terms of all these different things I had done was to get me to what I'm doing now. You know, I remember coming across this woman, White Dove, that I met as a kid. I actually met her when I was 16. We were gonna go through these. She was doing these classes on the Uranta book. It's way back in the days when people were still putting personals in the in a newspaper,
Yeah, yeah, I
like
remember.
desperately seeking Susan.
Hmm.
Yeah, we were still doing it. She put the stuff about the Uranta book. I was going to meet this woman in several different ways. And during the transition I was going through professionally, this is before my accident, probably about 34, 35. And she had told me, said, "You're not helping people." And I got irritated. I got up and left after the reading we was doing. I got up. What are you talking about helping people? My whole career is about helping people. And she goes, "Yeah, you are, but you're not helping the people the way God wants you to help people." I got irritated with her, walked out. But years later, I can tell you she was right. Because no matter how many of these, especially to me, I think it's so much more beneficial to clients to do a hypnosis session as opposed to getting a reading from me, which is questioning how psychic is he, how medium is he, you know what I mean? And all these things asking somebody else when you can actually hypnotize them, they're going to heightened awareness, consciousness, and they can do it themselves. They don't need me or anybody to do it. They experience it for themselves. That's where it's at. That's where the real trauma is relieved, not talking to somebody else, having them validate certain things. And if you come out of a psychic medium or a psychic reading, especially, the thing for me is this: as a cognitive behavioral cops, what did the reading do to improve your daily life? How did it benefit your daily life? Anything in there about that? You know what I mean? If it didn't, to me, it's partially useless. You do a hypnosis session like your work, my work, it means something, and it means something for them. And it's like a thorn, like you get a thorn in the flesh when it's embedded in there. It's causing constant inflammation, itching, all these things. All right. When you remove that thorn, the healing immediately starts. It's the same way with these traumas. You know what I mean? The healing immediately starts, and you may have it on your desk there, and you look at the scar. It may be scabbed or even healed up, but you still see the scar. You still see that thorn sitting there. Damn, that was a painful MF. But on the other hand, it's not still embedded, causing that inflammation anymore, that poisoning. It's been removed. That's when the healing really begins. And trauma is so much like that, especially when it's embedded in our organs, in our cellular makeup. And people can look that up. It's not the Maslow's hierarchy, but it's the where organs, body organ traumas. Pull that up on Google, and you'll get these charts that come up. I know some videos with them, and it shows you what trauma is stored in what organ. It's very interesting, and a lot of times that's where an earthbound will attach. Is something where they had a trauma, like you mentioned, that place where a person did too. So very, very, very interesting and a bit creepy. You know what I mean? Because I
That's a
pulled as many
science.
as
It's like a blueprint of how it all works. And it's people like me and you that's discovering the science of the metaphysical world and how this actually really exists. And like this knowledge needs to be incorporated mainstream in the future, because I feel it's going to be people like me and you that's going to be working side by side with doctors, because doctors are untrained, that they only literally are designed to treat the physical hologram, meaning most injuries, most things that happen to you, most cancers, they're spiritual in nature. That's what we found out through like my modality QHHT. And what you figured out was it comes from other events, from other times, or moments that you never let go and you held on to it. And it pretty much puts you on this wheel of karma, bringing you the same results over and over, kind of like the abusive relationship or the really crappy job. And no matter where you go, you get the same boss over and over, and you can never get forward. You can never save money. But ultimately,
Mhm.
it's your decision
Yeah,
that's keeping you there.
yeah.
You're like, but I'm comfortable. I don't want to leave my relationship because I'm never going to find anybody else. Or like, I hate my job, but the money's really good. That's one of the biggest regrets upon death, is giving up your life for the money and not living
Mhm.
life. Like that's horrible, man.
Yeah. And this place is designed for that. It is designed that by the time we have so much of our attention, of our free, we don't have enough free energy to have sustained attention. Our attention is completely consumed with this third dimensional, just to pay your bills, take care of your kids, go to school, that to go to work, that takes maximum energy. The average person has very little free energy left to actually put on the other side of perception, which is where we dream, like the left side of perception. We got the right side, the left side of not just brain, but consciously too. The left side of consciousness is where the death process is, the dream process, the higher faculties. Okay. And it's this right side that is more the land of man, the band of man, these things that are third dimensional, but that takes tons of our energy, our soul energy, our spirit energy, our consciousness, just to keep this like it is, to where we have very little left when we go to sleep. And you'd be like knocked out like me. I go to sleep, I used to be out. I had to really start learning ways to gain free energy, how to store free energy, how not to get drained by these idiots out here, how not to get drained by emotions, how to try to save enough energy to where I could have a type of dream attention, just enough to where I could start looking at my hands and see if they're mine or not. The first gate of dreaming, things like that, then shifting my gaze around. And if you're one of those people, a natural dreamer, you just come in here and you can control your dreams. You're lucid with all this and that. You're a blessed what type of warrior that's called a dreamer. You got the other warriors that are called a gatherer or a stalker. That's like me. Okay, I have to act a certain way. I'm very good in the third dimension. I do things here. I'm cognitive, all these things, abilities, yada yada. But sometimes when I go to sleep, I'll be out. It's a matter of transferring your full cognitive ability like you are right now into your dream body, into your energy body when you're dreaming awake. That's when everything starts changing. That's when we become multidimensional too. It's difficult though. You gotta be able to shut off your internal dialogue. You could have a lot of gifts, a lot of techniques.
And humans are designed to go there twice a day naturally to that theta state where we can where we can access that astral etheric body where we get all of our real work done. Like when we're here in this hologram and this illusion, we're playing out agreements and stuff like that, but like our real work is done when we fall asleep and we go to that other realm. And I like to tell people that naturally everyone experiences hypnosis, and we go through these four waves every day: beta, alpha, theta, delta. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So, anyways, I like to tell people that the people that think that they can't go under, I'm like, the human body is designed to go into theta twice a day. The pocket right before you wake up, you are in theta brainwave. You are in the astral etheric realms, and then right before you fall asleep, you enter that pocket. And if you can train your brain to, one technique that I like to do is set an alarm when you're going to sleep and set the alarm for every 10 minutes. And when you're really tired, right when you're about to fall asleep, the alarm comes on. And then you try to fall asleep, the alarm comes on. It keeps you in this kind of mid state between the physical and the non-physical. And you can learn how to hack that because, like, again, all real change is done in the astral, man. That's where we really get stuff done.
I have somebody that I think actually may not be able to be hypnotized. I haven't tried yet, but I get so tired of hearing that the people saying they can't be hypnotized. Everybody can. Actually, it's really easy, to be honest, and people are shocked how easy it is. But the bottom line is, if you don't want to be, then you can just. That's the only time to do it. If you don't want to be, there's no point. You're in the state of mind that you're doing a battle with the hypnotist, and the hypnotist is the person with the deal. You're under my power, and that's why. And then people start jumping around doing stupid stuff. That's the result of stage hypnosis, party hypnosis. And as well as I do, you get somebody under, and you find out why they're really smoking so many cigarettes. That's no effing party, man. It's no party. They're crying. They're breaking down there. It's not for audience. It's not
Take
for
them to the
taping.
root event that happened, what started it. We take them to the moment it started that addiction, and that's why they never let it go, and that's why they can't kick the addiction, because they don't realize it stems from one single moment. And if we take them back to that moment, we can heal that moment, release that trauma. Then they don't have to smoke no more because the anxiety's gone, the weight's gone, the body feels way lighter.
Because all the other things are compounded from there. Yeah, yeah. So it's things like that I think is just it's really just imperative, and it's a shame that it's not more widely known and more widely practiced.
That's what I was
But
saying. Eventually, we're going to be side by side with the doctors, telling them exactly what is wrong. And if we can't literally get rid of it, then doctors really can't, because, like, you take someone with cancer, you can remove the cancer, but if the lesson is still stored in that body part, the cancer is always going to come back. That's why they say, it came back, because you can't remove the lesson. You have to face the lesson. You have to face the dark night of the soul. If someone wronged you when you were a child and they took something from you that's sacred, you got to face that moment. You have to forgive them. You don't have to forgive them to their face. You can forgive them to the universe. We can put you in a state of awareness where we truly bring that trauma forward and we process that emotion for the first time, because more than likely you've never truly processed that emotion. Sure, you broke down, sure, you've cried, but you never forgave that person. You would probably say, I'll never forgive that person. That's why you're dying. That's why your organs are shutting down. This is why you got an injury in a certain part of your body that won't go away, because that energy is toxic. It's angry energy is the most destructive energy you can store in the human body. And when you don't forgive, imagine like that's red root color energy where you're constantly have a security bubble around you. You don't let no one in. The wall will never come down. And when you do that, the body starts breaking down. Your body is separate from you. So your thoughts, your consciousness, depending on the quality of your thoughts, that affects the quality of your body. If you constantly say, I'm ugly, I hate myself, your body takes that personally and it starts showing you how ugly it can get. If you say, I hate how fat I am, you're probably going to get fatter because the more thought energy you throw into saying I'm fat, it's almost like adding 5 more pounds to the energetic body because the physical body is only a representation of the internal line of the internal mind in the physical. So you just got to be careful on how you treat your body, your thoughts specifically. Like most people don't love themselves. I would say 80% of the planet does not love themselves. They're only living life for other people or for children. They're not really trying to see what they're capable of, and they're only distracted in life, just like you said. We have all these addictions. We have social media. We can't turn the streaming off. Like humans
Well,
do
people don't
have,
even know who they are anymore, man. That's the
yeah,
problem.
it's just we
And it's
don't
just and the
prioritize.
lack of social interaction is just getting worse. You
That's what
know,
they want. They don't want, they want like the jab kind of scenario where everybody's 6 feet apart, where no one connects anymore. No one exchanges energy in the physical. They want you segregated and separate and like seeing everything as outside yourself and everything as a combatant and everything is like trying to harm me. Like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take the individuality away from the human. And that's what makes us us. Like that's like taking the avatar away from the avatar, taking the costume away from the being and stripping it of identity. There's nothing left.
yeah, that's pretty sad. It wasn't that long ago, I was standing with somebody and we're at a place where a lot of people were crossing by at this art deal. And they give me a challenge. They say, I bet you can't count two people that aren't looking at their phones, or three, I think it was. And I couldn't even find one. And because kids under 12 and under don't count. And I had one guy walk by me. He's got his girlfriend's hand, and when he's walking, I was like, oh man, there's one right there. And he gets right to where I am, like I can see you now. And he takes his girlfriend, hold on, goes in his phone, grabs his phone, probably grabs his phone. So I was like, oh
I knew it.
no, the one person. There's like I'm telling like 30 people, man. At that particular deal walked by, everybody's looking at their phone. It's unreal, kind of. You say, man, and that's where like the people that used to be substitutes got up there and you get a little chalk on you. You're teaching, you get chalk on you, you use the eraser and stuff on the blackboard, interacting with the class. That's like becoming history. Substitutes are online now. That's just where certain things that when it gets lost, it's a shame. I talk about these beings that I call charters, and charters for me they come in. When I first came forward and I talked about these charters, I probably got more emails and more responses than almost anything I talked about. And what these charters are is they appear to be like per se human, and they show up for me every 7 years. It seems like lifetime contactees every 7 years. One shows up and they usually find you in a place that's like a bus station, a bookstore, an airport, some public place. There's a lot of people. They come out of the crowd. They come up to you and they just say some heavy crap to you, some heavy stuff to you for the amount of time they're talking
Subconscious
to you.
download.
Yeah, and it kind of just makes you go, oh. They say something so heavy that it resonates with your soul, and they just go back in the crowd and they're gone. You don't know where they come from. I think it's maybe the Christian Bible that says often people have entertained angels and been unaware of it. These aren't angels, I don't think, although there are angels that walk in human form too. These are more, I think, if I would tell you this, if their energy is more advanced, if we don't like maybe destroy ourselves in the next 2,000 years, what are we going to start being like when we get more advanced and before humanity transforms and changes our conscious vehicle? where it changes to something like a plasma or something different, a light or something different than what the human frame is, the atom cadmon is. So I would say this: these individuals feel like that to me. Like they're just they're human, but they're a couple of thousand years more advanced than us. And their energy, if you can really feel energy, it pushes you like that. Not like somebody that's got ADHD, not like that, but it's just a more advanced push. There's nothing you see about them that makes you say, "Hey, are you an extraterrestrial?" It's not quite like that. A few things that maybe the eyes are worth noting. The ears might have a little smaller lobe, but there's nothing I've been able to see on them that, you know, there's just food for
It's the
thought. But
energy.
but
Their
I think they
energy
keep.
lets you know that they are an ET and they are not a regular person. We
Mhm.
meet them a lot of time at the conventions we do.
I'm waiting.
I've met more than a few, man. I've met more than a few where the moment you see
I'll
them,
tell
you
you,
know they are
I've
not from
done
around these parts.
I've done 14 of these conferences now. This will be my 14th coming up, the one I'm doing next. And
Yeah, you and
I
I will be speaking at that, the Full Disclosure Now conference at the Serrata Beach Resort in St. Pete Beach. That's going to be fun. That's the largest collection of super soldiers and MK Ultra experiencers I've ever seen at a single event and remote viewers. That's freaking amazing, man.
and positive contactees. I hope.
Oh yeah, totally. I've had a
Besides
mix,
just
man. I've had throughout all my incarnations, like most beings, they care for each other. And you know what I'm saying? Like they're positive beings. And like a lot of these higher dimensionals, like they're not these evil kind of overlord, kind of like let's enslave all the population kind of stuff. So like
no.
a lot of contact is positive. So I've had a nice mixed bag of like really crappy stuff because of the programs I've been through. And thank you for saying I have the Artron energy, man, because I know that that's your bullshit meter for anyone you meet that's new that makes claims. And for you to say that, man, it means a lot because like people like you have real gifts. It's kind of like when I knew
Oh, thanks,
I
man.
do these conferences, I know I'm going to be walking around with real psychics, real people that can read you the moment you walk by. They can probably see your 9 foot freaking extraterrestrial body walking with you or your soul guides, man. So like man, true abilities, and I've always loved that about you, man. Like just
Oh,
going back
thanks, man. I
to like
appreciate that.
seeing these things, like you've had all these awesome abductions, you've got to see all these amazing engine platforms made of crystals and vacuum powered versions, and like it's just amazing, man, that
Mhm.
there's this real world outside of everything we know, and to know that we're not just these insignificant specks of light that when we die we're nothingness, and
Mhm.
like we now know that we're eternal. You can never truly kill energy, you can't destroy energy, man. So like
Mhm.
going from these life between lives and all these incarnations, it's been amazing, man. Like it's been really
Mhm.
hard. Like this one incarnation has been one of my hardest because of what I had to go through, what I'm still going through. When you're in the programs, it's lifelong. You're never really out. So all these insiders, if they claim they were in the programs and they say they're out, I don't believe them. This is like
So
a lifelong.
the real and look, here's the problem. See, we've got right now, especially the SSP thing and the UFO field ufology itself is like a moth to flame for those that are mentally ill.
It is
But
a lot
there's
of
a difference between
consciousness.
those that just and using that as an excuse, opposed to those that have actually been in one of these programs. And there's those others that haven't. But I hear certain things are starting to get better now. When I meet somebody like you or a few others that I know are real, there's certain things y'all say, and one of them is like, "I'm never gonna I might not ever be able to get out of this thing." And I've come across clients that I'm doing another maybe an ET regression for something that has nothing to do. They don't even know what the heck SSP is, and they've been involved in this stuff. And I have to start showing them stuff like, "Hey, you check this SSP stuff." They go, "Oh my god, they didn't even know." These are people that live in in the country, man. You
Yeah,
know what
they
I
don't
mean? But
believe in this
nonetheless,
fancy
it's,
space travel
I'm
stuff as
not,
being
not that I'm
real.
laughing at it, but it is what it is. So I can't deny it. You know what I mean? It's very real. And some of these are just targeted people. And then when I talk to someone like Susan Manwich talks about how she was taken out of class when she was a kid. almost abducted out of class by some fake principal, and they start asking her questions and things that's very real that happens to people, to where it started making me look at, man, when did I things really examining my childhood. I was like, nothing really happened. One day I had this guy come in, and he was asking me, like, testing me for something. He's asked me if I could read people's thoughts. I
That's almost
remember
like the
that.
talented and
And I,
gifted
and I, and I, I
program
could
like
do
our
that, but I
team was
said I
in.
couldn't. Sorry, what's that?
That was like the talented and gifted program that our team was in, where they basically identified him and they had these like men in black kind of people come in after he took that test because he was pre-identified. I think it was first grade to have an IQ of 180. So
Mm-hmm.
that got him identified to be intact by first grade. Second grade, he was out of it. He thought he was out of it, but he was even deeper than he ever was. But like that's how they identify us, man. In school, they pre-identify us and they make sure to send their handlers in after these tests are done to officially abduct us. Kind of like I had to realize what my screen memories were, for the longest time, because with hypnosis, you get to uncover parts of yourself that other people can't do. Because if I do
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis, I can have other hypnotists trade me modalities and you do something for me, I do something for you. So that's always been a help. But like I realized I've had a lot of screen memories and I figured out
Mm-hmm.
what the truth were. Like kind of like my first abduction, I thought it was Gray's. And it turns out it was actually the United States Air Force abducted me and they gave me screen memories. But the jacked up part about it was I was actually abducted by Grays before that. And this was supposed to be going off the fear of the first time because the Grays have been with me since birth. I was part of something called Project Serpo, which have to
Yeah,
do
I've heard of
directly
it.
with the Grays. And it's really unique the way I interact with them because they've been with me since birth. And like, I've had a lot of negative experience with them and they hijack my sessions all the time. A lot of times when I try to get put under, they will prevent me from going under. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're in the room, like, other seers can literally see them when they're there. It's that intense. So, like, it sucks to have so much negative experiences in this life and then the memories that they gave me. I realized a lot of the memories I got back, a lot of them were really positive experiences of the beings I've dealt with off planet. You know what I'm saying? Like you're sent to a certain place through certain programs and you have a mission, but like the beings you interact with, a lot of them are just innocent. They have no real motivations. They don't know what true war is. They don't know what true technology is. And like they're just regular moms and dads and like children having experiences. And like it's very humbling to see that, man, to know that we incarnate from life to life in other bodies, kind of like it's problematic for certain groups of people to always claim that the whole racist stuff. Like to me, racism is so embedded in me, and I'm so triggered by it because my last physical incarnation I had, I was living in Missouri and I was dating a black girl and we had a kid. And during that times, this was in the 50s. We had to hide our relationship from the public. We couldn't even walk hand in hand because it would get her beat down or like it would really cause problems. And my parents found out that I knocked her up. They came and got me, and I never seen her or my child again. And that was really tough for me. My name was Jesse in that life, and my son's name was Joshua. My girlfriend's name was Allison. And I died in the late 70s with that pain of that systemic parasitic racism where stupid human beings judge other beings by their color and they don't realize that they are also live the lives of those colors of beings. Kind of like you don't understand, like I've not always been a white person. Like we incarnate in different bodies and different colors in this human timeline. To incarnate as one color over and over, that's crazy. You don't see that. Even you don't see that's common. Like it's just not a thing unless you have a very specific mission where you have to keep incarnating in that kind of line to have a mission be successful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, bloodline wise, I have seen it happen actually. But I think that, how to say this, it's I see that, and I see what I don't see consistently is transmigration between male and female. I've seen it several times, but it doesn't. I've had others that they seem to be like male or female almost every lifetime. You know what I mean? I find that interesting, but you're right, not always the same race, but there are times the same race happen. Like I've been the few Earth incarnations I've had, I've been melanin dominant most times, but the last time I was not. And there's still some stuff sticking with me on that lifetime. It's interesting. People always ask, they say, "Man, how is it?" When I was a kid, my friend, it was a nightmare because when I see like a movie once or a TV show once, I can remember almost every line from every actor in the entire movie. This is the first time. So when I was a kid, man, it was a nightmare. When HBO and Skinamax and Showtime would come on, man, they were showing the same movie every other day. I was screwed the first day, So, but I didn't realize too until I got older that type of a memory wasn't a curse, but actually it's not just something lingering from another lifetime, but also it's a way that spirit communicates with me also, and different spirits do. They will pull a scene from something somewhere that is directly relevant to the situation.
Isn't it
So he's
funny
doing a
how that's a
reading of
teaching
whatever it
tool
is.
from the past, and you'll figure it out later on in life. You remember from one movie, and it creates a link to a current understanding. And without you watching that movie, you would have never understood the new concept being presented to you now.
When I saw this engine I call the gyrospheric, I thought it was an engine, but now I think maybe really it's more of a brain. But this thing had not just these hexagons inside of this ball that we would now call, it looks similar to something they call in C60 now. Not just Shignight, but C60, similar, but this was much bigger. And it had these rings around it, like these Saturn looking rings that were moving. And the day years and years later, I see the movie Contact with Jodie
Jodie Foster,
Foster,
yeah, that's a
and
good
the
one.
thing they dropped her through the
Yeah.
wormhole.
Mhm.
That tripped me out. I was like, somebody saw this. Somebody saw something. There's another movie, man. God, it was a terrible movie, brother. Superman Returns with Brandon Roth.
Yeah, that was
It
pretty.
was terrible, man, because one is like he's trying to be Christopher Reeve, and the other guy's trying to be Gene Hackman, KV Spacey.
Wasn't a good
I
cast.
I like how he just goes into the forest of solitude. He just goes like this, and he gets control of all the alien crystals. Come on, man. Anyway, but seriously, the first part of that movie, there's a scene that has been deleted from the very beginning of it, and he's actually going back to Krypton, but he's on board this ship, and he comes at first. He's in this hyperbaric chamber. Okay, Tony, that the trip is obviously longer and more harsh than we thought in the Christopher Reeve deal, but he's in a crystalline hyperbaric chamber. It opens up, he comes out of it, and he walks into like the bridge room. And the bridge are all these quasi crystals growing towards him. And he pulls his hand up and they stop growing and he starts accessing them. I mean, they were trying to show us that back in the 70s because when I saw this this first experience of what I call the organic the organic UFO. It was trans configuration changing, all right? Morphing UFO is what I call it on my YouTube channel. But this thing actually, it goes from being a metal looking ship to actually having look like this static type of things on it, almost like a TV screen thing. And then it morphs into this crystalline thing. And this book, interesting. I went to Vegas when I met you and sat with JJ Hurtak, and he
I
signed
have
this
that
book.
book. That
He's
is
me
the
about
most complicated book I've ever read in my life, and it is so tough to get through. And good God, that I
check it out,
call
brother.
that.
Go ahead.
It just reminds me of like the Bible of the freaking universe, man. Like just
Man,
the
that's
concepts.
a killer book. The
Yeah,
interesting thing is this: I couldn't find my other copy. I got my first copy of this book in '94. As you can see, it's completely just a simple. Oh,
I
it's a
have the
killer book.
same one.
That
Literally,
is
I have them all right there. I have the mind dynamics and space and time. I have all of them. I think the Hertox signed 20 books to me. Like
oh, that's cool.
so awesome.
When I sat there, he signed this because I got this one because I couldn't find my other one. I said, I'll just get one from him, and I made sure I got the same year edition. But he signed it. When he signed it, I wanted to ask. I said, "There's a book and there's a page in here. Maybe it's 295, but he has pictures of what are called the Merkabahs, but one is called the bipyramidal Merkabah and the tripyramidal Merkabah. And in that, he shows illustration of a ship doing transfiguration, morphing, just like similar to what I saw. So I sat there with him. I said, where did you see that? Get that from? And he told me I was taken on board a craft and I was taken to another planet and I saw it. And I told him as much as he seems like he's everybody started talking to him and everything. I said I've seen a tripyramidal Merkabah. And you're the first person I've seen illustrated, and it helped me a lot back in about '96. And I'll tell you, I seen for a little bit. I had 100% of that man's attention. It's quite interesting. You've seen illustrations of that tripyramidal Merkabah. I'll show it at the deal. But anyway, just this here, and this book is what's interesting about this is I've checked out a lot of what they call holy books, holy text. And some of them, if you sit and like meditate and pray on a question I have, then I take the book and just open it. It's like, boom, a chapter, a thing right there, the answer. Mm-hmm. It's always heavy. I mean, I'm not a religious cat, okay, but I mean, the Bible works like that. I can use that like that. The Quran, all these things that have the holy text on it, they all seem to work like that. But one that works like that is this one. It works like that too. They call it the keys, Enoch. You do it like that, it'll open up to a key. There's things that are impressive in here, like they're the fire letters and the fire words. Mm-hmm. They're actually can be used with pranayama. And I almost the woman that I had these experiences with, the three when I was adult onset, missing time, they were from Tel Aviv, and they spoke fluent Hebrew throughout high school. She taught it all the way, probably still to now, I'd imagine. All right. So I showed some of the words in here. There were these fire letters, and she tripped out. You're not supposed to use those words. Oh, she got real nervous. So it's things like that, and how you can summon light beings with the techniques in here.
Very powerful.
I put some of that stuff on Facebook. I've done videos on it. So I invite people to go to my YouTube channel, just check out the playlist. I've been shadow banned years ago, but if you look at the playlist, a lot of stuff will come up on there.
Playlist is like around 100 videos. Is that one you're talking about? That playlist?
What's that?
The playlist you're talking about, is that the one with like 100 videos?
Man, that one would be probably the book review list. There's probably 30 of them on there. I don't know. The one with my personal experiences and various. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. And they're short videos, but they're just to steer people where to do your own research and get it for yourself. It's not the same thing if I sit up there like a parrot repeating the information, or you can repeat what I'm saying like a parrot. It lacks the experience. Give yourself the experience, and that comes through action.
That's right. You got to read this stuff, man. Like I'm 44 years old, man, and I've read over 4,000 books. And wow. you have to, and it turned me into a polymath, man. Like that's why I can just like I study hard, man. Like when I read information, I don't have a photographic memory. My traumatic brain injury gave me crystal memory. I'm sorry, liquid memory, which is that I can understand extremely complicated concepts with no formal training. And like I can meet anyone in any field, and I can understand the most complicated concepts that would take third and fourth and fifth year college level people to even understand the concept, because they were taught the previous concepts to understand it now, the previous 3 or 4 years of understanding. And it's amazing. So it's like when you talk to JJ, and like we possess the type of knowledge or information that blows people away, and it's not normal. Like me and you, we don't like to small talk. We're not bullshitters. We like to only talk about the complicated stuff worth talking about. Like that's why we when you see us at shows, it's mostly we're by ourselves. We don't talk a lot unless we're engaged in a conversation, because again, we're not into the small talk. We're not here to talk about like the regular kind of stuff. If you want to come up to us and you want to mention next level stuff, that's who we are. And other people will see that in you, and they judge the first thing you say, the first question you ask. That's what they judge. So you have to make sure your stuff is next level, or more like you're going to say something. Like my thing is I never act like a fan, ever. I will never give you compliments like, oh yeah, this blah, 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 blah. Everyone hears that, and you're forgettable at that point. So I'll just go to like slap you in the face with something that's so left field, you're like, whoa, why would you say that specifically? Like, that's been on my mind and no one's talking about it, man. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's how you got to capture people, man.
I go to those conferences and I go there because people are spending so much money to be there. I make sure I just pretty much talk to everybody who wants to talk to me. You know what I mean? And
I'm
a
the
lot of
same.
times it's people that want to just be heard. And and those that are fortunate enough to be able to go there. And it's always those people at the conferences that say, I never had experiences like you or experience. It's always them that I'm getting the most Artron energy off of. And they wind up being big time
And
contactees.
those are the ones that have the most veil of forgetfulness over them. It's like they have no clue they're involved, but something is
Hmm.
pulling into these shows and they can't explain it. The
Hmm.
concepts are familiar. It's like they know it, they lived it, and they have no clue.
Like I don't remember where it was. It was actually one of the melanin dominant conferences I spoke at, and lady shows up and said that something like that. I had experiences like you, yada yada, and she felt like tons of Artron energy coming off her. And actually, Ray Hernandez was at that one. He was standing up there, sitting over there. And I told her, I said, I feel this, honey. He said, you seen a UFO? And she's like, well, yeah, actually twice. I said, was it a crowd of people and only a few of you could see it? Yeah, me and only just one other person. I said, well, you need to really think about next night or two, you start having weird dreams. Well, yeah, now you mentioned it, yeah, but it wasn't about UFOs. But having dreams about beings. See that time lag that happens when we see that a ship that's going at that type of a vibration, even for just a couple of seconds, so much information gets transferred to not or I mean, I don't like the word download. I think that's a a gimmick word these days. There's always these words that come in every few years. Right now, everything is a download. Before, everything was a paradigm. Then going back to the 90s and 80s, everything was the scenario. So anyway, this information gets transferred, you know what I mean, at such a rapid pace to both our superconscious and subconscious that the inability to recall it and retain the memory of it is intense. So we already talked about, but I mean that contact, and there's a time lag. It comes out later in people's dreams, but so much gets transferred during those times of seeing those craft like that. And I mean, especially before the era of the drones. You know what I mean?
You mean like before, like the hardcore them ramping up V2K kind of stuff?
Oh, all that. There's so many drones now. I mean, it's hard to tell if you look at some sort of advanced drone or if you're seeing something that's just, is that's extraterrestrial or what. It's getting harder.
Well, I mean,
Just
DARPA, they literally perfected like animal and mosquito, like small stuff where we can't even see it the size of flies or smaller, like in the 1980s, DARPA did. And they've
yeah.
been using this in classified programs this entire time. They put it in all the movies. They're showing it us through predictive programming. They're showing us all these technologies that actually exist, and they say science fiction means make believe. But I believe we live in a universe that's inverted. So if you can think science fiction is actually the truth, does that make sense? Kind of like they say nonfiction is
Oh,
real,
absolutely.
fiction is make believe. I believe it's backwards because our history is fabricated. So what they say is truth is also a lie. So what is real?
Absolutely. It's things, but that's the main way entertainment, especially science fiction, is the main way that they're delivering these things to us, this secret information that's veiled as fiction when it actually is not. For example, like I mentioned a lot that there's a book called Earth, the Only Planet of Choice. I don't have that one in here either. But written by Phyllis Schrimmer, but it Scrimmer, sorry, but it involves this type of a channeling where the psychics and mediums are channeling this Council of Nine that said they come from a certain civilization with an S, and they describe what how I learned Earth as being, which is like the layers of an onion, and all these different civilizations that are right here with us, frequencies off. All right. But one of the people, there are people that will go in there and ask these mediums and these Council of Nine questions. And one of them's on there under GR. That's Gene Roddenberry. Okay. He was in there asking tons of questions. And something else, I told you Dr. Shields said Dr. Shields took an interest in Rudy Shield took an interest in my experience, and he's part of the CCRI and Free, and he started actually calling me like once a week for over a month. Something that happened. Incredible conversations I had with this man, and it's cool because he had interested in my experience from the science aspect. He's not a contactee, but he is a scientist, and he started saying that when he was much younger and he worked at one of the California's observatories, he said Gene Roddenberry would come in there on his lunch breaks when he was, he was like an Eric Estrada. He was a Chips, man. You know that Gene Roddenberry used to be Chips. He's a California Highway Patrol officer, and he would on his
We know
breaks
that.
he would come in there with his lunch and eat lunch with the astronomers at this observatory. He said he would sit there and ask us questions like, how fast would it be? What would it be like to actually go faster than the speed of light? And he would ask some questions like that, and they had no idea what he was doing. He was, writing. This is all before the original Star Trek. This is like late 50s. So, this is just food for thought again. And I used to always when people say the Galactic Federation, that guy used to giggle a little bit because it sounds like a Star Trek ripoff. And then for certain reasons, and then I thought, I had all these experiences all my life, and these cats would never give me a name. Okay, I asked over and over, I wouldn't get a name, no names, and they wouldn't give me at least a name of some sort of a coalition. Obviously, all these different
Like
beings, but
Confederation.
yeah, they wouldn't tell me what their name was, and it was really, and when I get it, they tell me extragalactic interdimensional cooperative alliance. I was out walking one morning, like 3 a.m., and this comes in clear as can be, man. I just stopped walking, man, wherever's doing. I just looked up, I said, not just telepathy, I said it verbally. I said, are you effing kidding me? I'm supposed to go tell people that name? I'm going to get laughed worse than the Ashtar Command, worse than the Galactic Federation, but in reality, though, you've got so many different of these the world, the Council of Free Worlds, these different organizations, and it's undeniably like. Then again, back to Jessica, I gave her one of the blind targets. I gave her was oh, which one was I can't want to say Smacks
Trap-
0721.
Was it
It was
talking about Trappist one as well?
Trappist one. Yeah, thank you, Trappist one. And there are two planets there. They're supposed to be really possibly in the Goldilocks zone.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy on Linda Moulton Howe named Buddy Bolton that reviewed those and got some very
Didn't
interesting
she see
Earth
like
file stuff.
high rise buildings and human looking place, open slavery, and it was very dominant amongst it all. And she originally thought
Yeah,
it was Earth.
yeah, yeah. And I thought you would get like this Buddy Bolton guy, see these type of amphibious beings and things like that that are sentient to a degree, and see something like that. But I mean, the first thing she's coming back to me saying, Barry, what city is this? So I said, let me explain it. She goes, these high rises. I've not seen high rises like this before. And then she starts describing. Then she went almost immediately into the slavery. What's with all the slavery? How is this going on legally? And she described a whole system of slavery there. And that's things I've heard from Tony Rodriguez, from you, from others that are real in this deal. Not these other people that are, basically saying, come to my other website. You can see pictures of me. They're modeling
Don't
nudity and
you hate
sexy,
that? Where
selling
hate
sex.
that?
I'm seeing
Hate
that
it.
people, I mean, come on, man. That discredits everything. And those individuals have so many followers, and it discredits
That's
people like
sickening, man.
you and people like Tony. You know what I mean?
It's
It,
like they're
it,
whoring themselves out in their physical, literal body and treating themselves as a physical whore for the ufology just field. And it's just like it's very offensive, man.
yeah, yeah, it is. It really is. It
You
really
see them
is.
like when they come, they're always dressed as goddesses. They always got to show off their boobs. They got to wear 20 pounds of freaking makeup and wear a freaking headpiece. It's just like, come on, man. You know why I know you're fake? Because you're dressed as a freaking fraud and everybody can see it. People like us, we're not going to put on bells and whistles and Ashtar robes and freaking like Starfleet uniforms. Like, come on, man. Come as
I
yourself.
was,
Don't
I, I,
don't be
I
that
was,
person.
I was thinking the one. Then I just doing it. One of them I was seeing not just that they up there. putting on Nazi stuff, man, taking pictures of Nazis, man.
I know who you're
What,
talking
man?
about. That
Man,
girl,
everybody's talking about. I was just kind of like, whoa, really? When do we go from selling sex to
honestly,
doing that,
dude, I went down that
man?
rabbit hole and I seen the interview she did with Eric Hecker, or like that recording with Eric Hecker. Oh my
Don't make me
God.
start laughing. Don't make me start laughing. Don't
I
make me
cannot
laugh.
believe she's even allowed to come because like I don't even want to repeat the word. She repeated one word over and over and over, but I don't want to go there, man. And she said it 150 times over and
my
over.
SSP, my SSP brothers, my
And
SSP masters.
you seen that Nazi come out of her. You just seen that.
Oh,
Oh my God.
oh,
I was shocked. I was just like, I cannot
yeah,
believe I'm
yeah,
watching this, man. Holy crap.
yeah. I watched it too, man. I was like,
I had to
whoa.
watch it twice, man. And
I
Eric
watched it
gave it to
twice.
her, and he pulled out something out of her with so much anger, man. She showed her true colors. Good for him, man.
Yeah, I mean that was intense, and I mean I
It
know a
was
lot of people got
intense.
a lot of people got issues with him because he goes hard on a lot of people
He
for about
does.
Antarctica or
Yeah.
whatever. I never had any problem with him. I've never been to Antarctica, so I don't know. But I'll tell you, I never heard anybody talk about that ice machine down there like he
Yeah,
has.
the
I
neutrino
think that is
detector. Yeah.
heavy, hardcore. That's serious information there, scientific information. You can't I can't discredit that at all. But I tell you, he tore her up. I thought that was hilarious, man. I was sitting up there like it was like it was a comedy show kind of. I mean, he tore her apart, man. It was, and Eddie almost felt kind of sorry for her a little bit. You know, when somebody gets, you know, those old times somebody gets roasted so hard they can't come back. Like kind of William Shatner and George Takei. Remember
Oh
that
my
when
God.
the
Yeah.
roasting of William Shatner? Oh, it's
Mhm.
great, man. Those two are on each other like nonstop, man. He said, "Man, my name is Taki. It's not Takei. You say that because it sounds okay." Anyway, man. But that that is a problem in this community. So I appreciate the people that come with the truth. And I wanted to learn more about the SSP thing because I want to know what when somebody comes through this this net coming to Earth, incarnating here, and what is the next step once we're fully incarnated. Now I'm knowing what it is. It's this directed energy thing. They're targeting people with gifts, and it's really a trip. I mean, that is the big, as hypnotists, that is that what they're doing is even more powerful than the whole, let's say, per se, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but let's per se the whole Christianity thing. Talk to people a lot of times, they say, well, I'm a Christian. I'm Christianity because I'm doing it because just in case. Well, just in case what? In case it's true, I don't want to be in eternity shoveling sulfur into shoveling ash into a sulfur mine with a pig-headed demon stabbing me with a pitchfork in the butt the rest of eternity. That concept of hell is so powerful that a lot of people will just do a religion just in case that's true. I've dealt with earthbound spirits. Like one tell me, what the first thing he says is one of the earlier ones I did, and he was one of the more resistant ones too. He's the first thing, um, you're trying to trick me. Well, won't even identify you, you're trying to trick me. You're not gonna trick me. I
That's
said,
what
well,
we
how am I
talked
trying
about
to trick
earlier.
you?
They're really
Yeah,
suspicious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're gonna try to do. You're gonna trick me to go in that light. You're gonna
That's
trick
what
me to
they
go. I'm
always
not
say.
going to that light.
They're
I'm not
trying to
going to that
trick
light.
you.
I'm not going to that light. I'm not going to do it. And I heard about you. I heard you're bad. You heard about me from who?
Exactly.
Someone,
What kind of
someone will
internet are
say,
you guys
yeah,
using
yeah,
these
yeah.
days, man?
Someone said, well, the others that were here that left before you came. Those ones and stuff like that. You hear stuff like that. You're like, whoa, okay. And it's so fascinating when you say, well, you may not go in the light, but you're not going to stay with the client either. You're hurting them. And then I said, well, why don't you go in the light? Two things. One, in the light, I can't get another drink.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that
And,
earlier.
and the other thing is this, man, I've hurt several people, and I think I'm going to go in there and burn. Or I killed somebody, and I think I'm going to go in there and burn. But then what happens when you're doing one of these past life regressions, and then these people start seeing people in the higher realms that shouldn't be there. They think shouldn't be there. And I noticed too, like you probably experienced this, that when you like go to this place of translation and reconfigurations, I think these clients go to, after they get done going through the whole reconfiguration part is incorporated into their soul matrix to apparently be wiped clean. Anyway, but they do that. But then there are these others, like the other side of the room or close, these other souls. I've gotten different numbers. I've gotten 20, 30 something, I've 21, 18, 12, 7, 6, 3, all different numbers. But there are these other souls that are there. And they all, and I ask in depthly, the people always, the clients always say, Drago, they say they have agreements with them. One person used to use contract. I said, is it a contract or is it an agreement? Is it forced? No, no, agreement's a better word. Agreement. We have agreements. And it's a trip because then you can take them back through the lifetimes and they can identify these people in several successive lifetimes, including this one, the current one. And isn't it a trip how so often I found it's not just family members, these souls, it's the people that screw them over to the max, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And what has happens, brother? We're over there all blissed out on the other side. We say, hey, man, tell us over there, hey, I need you to screw me over multiple
That's
lifetimes
how it
so I
works,
really get
man.
it.
That's it,
Yeah,
man.
the other souls over there, hey, I got you. I got you. I don't
Basically,
know, man.
it's like our soul family. We exchange these roles and we have to harm each other back and forth. We'll play the dad, we'll play the child, we'll play the mom, we'll play the grandpa, we'll play the betraying best friend that steals your fucking wife. But it's all done within love. It's all part of an agreement for you to learn something because there's something that's holding your spiritual evolution back. And that's why this scenario has to be presented to you, because more than likely you have a habit lifetime throughout lifetime to make the same decision to allow these things to happen to you, and you get part of you taken away. Therefore the void has to be filled. If you only focused on fear, anxiety, never completing, never trusting, you're going to have someone in your life every lifetime taking that away from you. You have to realize enough is enough. Stop giving them energy. Walk away. That's it. Walk away from the abusive relationship. You stop the will of karma. You don't have to do this ever again. And then you, Barry, you don't have to play the woman that breaks my heart and is the biggest lesson of my lifetime over again. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that's it. We're male, female, we're all the colors, we're all the beings, and we stay within our soul group and just exchange these roles.
I really trip out on when you do one of these like past life, even lifetime between life, but it's immediate past life, and the last life they had was not on Earth. It's on Mars. I've had Mars a few times. I've had other places that are. We're talking about not just other solar systems. We're talking about other galaxies. The one I mentioned earlier that is at this on this ship that is looking at other universes, tons of them. And they say, I said, well, what's the universe over there like? Which one? The one to the far left, Oh, the one at the top up there. Oh, that one, that one, that's interesting. That's a nice existence. We exist as what's similar to like microorganisms like amoeba, but we're the size of huge planets. And it's like fluidic space, and we're all connected through uh, collective consciousness. They're saying it's actually a nice life,
But
but
boring.
it's boring. I'm
Yeah.
not going back there.
But
I'm
nothing
going
will
back
ever
over there.
happen.
That years I'm going back
Exactly.
to Earth. I'm going to 1977. Whoa, okay. I mean, so specific too, Okay.
I see that. Souls will
and, and I,
prefer
and I think,
specific distances.
yeah, no matter how many sessions I do, I'm always blown away and feel brand new every time. And I think when they say you have to be as of a child to get back into the kingdom, maybe that's what they mean, because I'd be blown away, man. I feel brand new every time. And that's kind of where I think the enjoyment, the fulfillment really comes through. So it's a
With what you learn
that's
every session, man, just the amount of knowledge that comes through that we are unaware of as humanity. Like, to true knowledge is to understand that you know nothing, because we are surrounded by so much information that no single human body can possess the totality of all information that is accessible in this physical realm. It's not possible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It really is,
Not
really
in a
is.
two-dimensional two DNA strand. It's just not possible.
Yeah, it's too hard. and then we need to wake up some of that junk DNA, and then we've got all these forces enacting here on this contrived world we live on. I mean, we're dealing with just, now they're knowing now it's billions, trillions of galaxies.
Yeah.
That's just in this partially 3D universe. It's really it's amazing to the mind. You know, Edgar Mitchell had this story. And I first heard it from Ray Hernandez, and I finally saw him talking about it too. But he talks about something he called the barbecue effect. That when they're coming back in that shuttle to Earth, it turns so it doesn't burn so much on one side, like that probe thing. It turns, and he described it as being the barbecue thing. But actually, when turning, he looked out of the window and he talks about how when you're out of the atmosphere, there's so many stars so close together, it's unreal. But he started looking, and he could see in all these stars and start seeing them like swirling as the thing swirling in the window. And he felt like each one of these stars was connected to an individual molecule or cell of his body and his creation. And he got experienced some type of he got blissed out, a utopia type of feeling during it. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting when you start dealing with that and how we're connection through stardust and quantum entanglement, all these things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to the Hermetic principles with Hermes. It's basically as above, so below. Anything, it's kind of like modern physics focuses on the big things, the theory of everything, the planets, the solar systems, the densities, that kind of stuff, the physical objects, more like, right? Quantum physics focuses on the small things we can't observe, like the worlds within worlds, kind of like fractals. How everything is a fractal of itself, and you can go down infinity, past quarks, past observable phenomenon, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper like an onion.
And that takes us into those civilizations that have focused on the miniaturization of themselves when they go all the way to the pico and lower. When you start dealing with just the nano and you start looking at the amount of carbon nanotubes that Dr. Lear pulled out, some of those things of miles, they're microscopic, they got miles of carbon nanotubes within them. That's just on the nano. You start going down to the pico. Can you imagine what those civilizations are like that have built a Dyson sphere around their star and how they're exploring inner space, truly like Martin Shore and them, inner space, even more than that? That's how they're exploring the universe, is through inner space and dealing with that type of technology and that type of engineering and putting the organic on top of it too. What a perfect way to send a probe to another planet is by these spores that are impervious to solar radiation. When you have people like who was it? The mushroom cat, Timothy Leary, and who's the other guy? Oh God,
Talking about Terrence McKenna.
Sheldrake.
Gotcha.
Both the Rudolph Sheldrake, yeah, both of them talking about how psilocybin spores are impervious to solar radiation, and they felt that their probes from another civilization that adjust immediately to the symbiotically to the nervous of the planet. Very, very, very real, I think. Very
That would
true.
probably suggest that they have a layer of gamma protection, because when you're protected with the gamma, it almost it protects you from like the solar radiation and stuff like that.
When dealing with that, you have that stuff called radiotropic fungus that grows on the walls of Chernobyl and Fukushima, had to be scraped up by those robots. That stuff actually uses its melanin. It's a black fungus. It uses its melanin to convert gamma radiation into energy and the growth cycle. I mean, heck, man, I was joking yesterday. I was telling some people that's what Bill Bixby did, and Lou Ferrigno. That's what Hulk does. Gamma ray mutation.
Yeah, you
That's
drink
very
the
interesting.
radiation,
And
almost drinking it. You bring it into your body, and it
yeah,
powers you of a source of energy.
I had heard some melanin dominant scientists were telling me how they had suspected that perhaps this radiotropic fungus was sent from a higher civilization to help us with radiation cleanup. And I think that's what got Keish onto it, kind of, who's no one ever seen any of his real devices in operation for real. But anyway, that's what they were trying to do. But that's we say so much we don't get help from extraterrestrials. We hear that so much, but do we? And it's so subtle like that we don't notice it. Food for thought.
I agree. I don't believe any scenario where these ETs are not trying to help us, even though the New World Order is doing their own thing with the planet and it all goes down pyramid structure from top down. Like, I don't believe there's a scenario where they're not actually coming in and they're trying to negate and reverse a lot of the stuff they're doing on this planet. Because number one, the planet doesn't belong to the damn elites. So like there's a long-term investment on this planet of programs, specifically genetic programs that were going on way before the Anunnaki arrived, and they basically modified us 200,000 years ago, making us Homo sapiens sapiens. Like before that, we had a couple of billion years of these programs where you have these different species coming in, bringing their own beings, their own plants. Like marijuana is not even from Earth. Like it comes from another planet, another star system, man. Like there's a lot of investments that will be messed up that's been here for millions, if not billions of years. So I believe they're protecting it.
Well, is it? Where does it come from? Ursa Major, right? Is Ursa Minor? I think it's
I
Ursa.
think it comes from either Sirius or Pleiades.
Uh, I had heard Ursa Major.
Isn't
There's
Ursa is that in the Dipper series? The Dipper.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's what I
yeah.
thought.
I could be wrong on it. I've got something on my one of those pictures, and they talk about it a lot. I've heard it before in something called I believe it was the Urugu book. Yeah. So anyway, interesting. Yeah. Who knows, man? It's I think so many
Exactly.
things
Who
here
really
are
knows?
not native to Earth anyway. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? This is just one big experiment,
That's what
big
they call it.
biological experiment.
That's what they
For,
call it, the
and
experiment.
it worries me because we have these time shifts and these time edits that occurred during times of high solar activity, like we're in right now. And every time one of these timelines that comes up is nuclear war. It always comes up. You know, the reason why I gave our friend Jessica a target for this, it was the Zimbabwe children incident. This is a book by Preston Dennett. It's called Schoolyard UFO Encounters. In here he has about probably, gosh, like 70 cases that are very close and similar to the Zimbabwe children. And you'd be surprised how often these schoolyard encounters happen, just like jail encounters.
I
But
remember
I became
that
interested in.
that might be the same thing. There was a video that was made where they interviewed a bunch of these kids and they all everyone they interviewed, I'm talking about side by side, all the kids described the same stuff over and over. And when they were describing it, you could see they were emotional. It wasn't like they were describing it playfully. Like you can see it affected them. And they like, we all seen it up there. And like, it was a very real phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah. One of those ladies communicates with me, and she's she's showing me pictures of her grandchildren. So they're not kids anymore. That's back in the 90s, man. She's got grandkids. But I wanted to know if, like, because interesting, as they got older, some of those kids have described as remembering seeing these orbs circling them, opposed to seeing these gray type aliens or whatever. And then you have excuse me, Major Ed Dames that had remote viewed it. His team did, and they saw these orbs around these kids. Okay, so I gave that as a blind target to our friend Jessica Jones, and because I'm interested in knowing who is it that takes the time to talk to all these children to try to help them to change the world, which is our future. Okay, they're so concerned about the Earth when we know, you and I both know, that if humanity terminates or actually loses its stewardship of this planet, you've got a whole host of extraterrestrial, interdimensional, multidimensional beings wanting to come here and take over stewardship of this planet. That's not even a question of that. So who is it that was trying to communicate with these kids and change things? Who is it that has this type of a plasma technology that stopped like years ago when that meteor came in and hit the city in Russia? Something hit that thing when it came into the atmosphere. They try to say it was another meteor that collided into it. No, it was something that was disguised the technology to look like that, like it can look like plasma, that was trying to help us. Who's doing this? So that's what I wanted to know. So I gave her that as a blind target. And you know, one of the things that came out of that Galactic Federation. She don't even know what she's looking at. She's talking about the Galactic Federation. Oh no, I got more than I bit off for. More than I can chew. No, but seriously, it's just interesting. I mean, you can't make that type of stuff up. So, you know, that is another one of these factions that here. You've got the ones I deal with. There's them. You've dealt with some. There's all these different factions here because we're dealing with just in this galaxy several billion stars. You know, you talked about actually meeting some extraterrestrials at the conferences. I harassed you a little bit because that's always been what I would like. I met charters, I met other things, but never at any of these conferences. And there's a gentleman that's now deceased that I really respected named Dr. Delbert Blair. And Dr. Blair was a certified genius. The brother was heavy, you know, and I didn't realize until some years ago he was a contactee too. And he describes a lifetime of contact, but also being going in the probably the 70s or 80s to a George Adamski conference. And I've always had an interest in George Adamski because the crafts that he shows, the Venetian crafts supposedly, have these gyro balls on the bottom of them. I've seen ships that have that, so I always found that interesting. And also, he described these Nordics in these blue suits. I've seen Nordics in blue suits that I'm sure are time travelers, timeline integrity people, I think. Anyway, but he said during this George Adamski conference, at the end of it, he got approached by these two melanin dominant dudes, and that they started immediately talking to him telepathically with severe telepathy. And they said they were from Alpha Centauri, and I believe Alpha Centauri B, and there you go. So I've always hoped that I have a couple come up to me. I'll have a couple from Alpha Centauri cats come up and talk to me. You know, so just point being that he was saying also, well, there's black people in Alpha Centauri too. So, you know, very interesting though, nonetheless. So that's something I share in common with Dr. Blair, interested in the Adamski contact experiences.
It's pretty awesome. You've had so much overwhelming good experiences with him, man. It's refreshing to hear from that point of view because you're right. Again, everybody focuses on the negative stuff, and like it just lets us know that there's a world out there, and it's not so dark as we thought it was.
Yeah, no.
And
And I don't want to discredit anybody's have negative experiences. That is very real. I'm not discrediting that at all. And I had my heart goes out to that. But we have to understand the bigger part of the pie is positive experiences. Although they may be weird and it makes it hard to adjust, like trying to be normal. I was in college, man. I'm doing through classes. I'm looking at the teacher. I'm seeing, you know, auras on him. I'm seeing, you know, other stuff going on. Thinking that cat could be part gray or something. All this stuff going through my mind. You can't think of hardly anything else. So trying to adjust to being just normal life after you've had some sort of experience that blows your perception way out. It's super hard. That's the only negative part that I could say definitely, you know, and trying to understand it is kind of can drive you crazy if you're not crazy, if you're not careful.
it's kind of
But
like you have to live the life of the cover life. Like you're an extreme experiencer, and you've got to walk around as Barry Littleton, the human being. That's the regular guy that has to pretend to be human, and like you're just this otherworldly kind of personality, and like that's what I had to do. It's just like you got to tame it down, and you got to watch the conversations because like over the years we found out they can only be talked about to certain types of people because anyone else will not believe you no matter what. So especially the SSP stuff. So like it's just cool to meet other experiencers, like legitimate experiencers, and like us exchange stories, and like this is what this is about, man. This is why we have podcasts and we interview our friends, and like this is what life is about, man. Talking about these traumas and horrors and bringing them to the light and letting them know that we can all get past this, man, if we just join together, stop hating each other, and we just join and fight them instead of fighting each other.
Agreed. Agreed, man. Definitely. And that's what it's about, bringing this tapestry together in unity to a degree that makes us. These are all things that put us into a Type 1 civilization. That's what Gene Roddenberry was showing us in '65, the original Star Trek. It was that, what Type 1's think about on that bridge. You had all races on there. And if you look at the cartoon of the original series, you got a bunch of non-humans on the bridge too that they couldn't illustrate back then. So, I think that's where it's at. And I can say being on a multidimensional ship, though, is nothing like what you see on Star Trek. It's different. Being on a ship where the corporeal, the command officers are non-corporeals. You know what I mean? Non-physicals. Other containers for consciousness like plasma, light, condensed light,
Well,
things like
the
this.
physical containers is like a lesser evolved kind of thing because at the higher dimensions, there is no physical body. It's only consciousness and light. So I think that's a perfect way to end the show, man. This was a freaking awesome conversation, man. I'm definitely going to have you on again because you and I can talk for hours about everything and not stop. So, like, that's
Oh
freaking
yeah,
awesome. We're so much alike and we're into the same stuff. And, like, we cherish bringing people to the light, man, and waking people up. So,
it's important, man. It's so important. And I think that if there were like a million of us doing it, I think we'd really be on the high side of it. We get most of them transitioned before there's some sort of rapture.
I'm waiting for the event, man. If something major is going to happen, I want to experience it in this lifetime, and I'm ready, man. So, like, bring on the extraterrestrial Star Trek civilization, and let's get on
Yeah,
starships. Let's conquer the cosmos together, man.
I know. Give my regards to Laura, man. I didn't really get to talk to her at the conference very much, but
You're
it
not
was
going to
so.
be at the Rebels of Disclosure this week, right?
Oh, that's right. She's going to be there too.
I'm
That,
coming too. I'm pulling a sneak attack. I'm coming last minute. I gotta unfortunately miss the first 2 days, but I put the money together and I made it happen and I'm showing up. So like,
oh, you're talking about the Journey to Truth thing.
yeah. I'll
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Oh, you're going to that. Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
freaking excited. So just to sum it up, you and I will be speaking at the Full Disclosure Now conference in St. Pete, Florida, at the Serrata Beach Resort, July 15th through the 18th, and you can buy tickets now at thefulldisclosuremovement.org. What are you going to be presenting about?
We're talking about a little bit of everything. I'll go over some things about earthbound spirits, some things about space, about the Makos, a lot about my personal experiences. I was always going to take that out of my presentations. I've been told to not. So I will talk about that a little bit, kind of just trying to bring all that together to show that it's not the separate things that we think. So,
Oh yeah, man. Any final thoughts?
no, just thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again, and let's do it again sometime.
Yeah,
Definitely.
man.
I
I can't wait to see you in
it
July,
just took
man.
this just took its own way. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. It just took its own path, didn't it? That's cool
Yeah,
though.
man. It's like I
That's
said, like I don't line up subjects to talk about. I'm not that guy. I like to kind of freestyle, see what you're interested
yeah.
in, see where it evolves. Like you could see this whole conversation, there was no canned material. It all just evolved out of what we talked about. So like that's cool, man.
Cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing you at the conference, man.
All right, man. So where can we find you? Your social media information? Where do we want us
Yeah.
to send you to?
I have a website, barrylittleton.com. Needs a little more work on it, but there's links on there too to my other stuff. I've done a lot of stuff on YouTube under just Barry Littleton. Also on Patreon, Barry Littleton. And I do some stuff on Facebook a little bit. I try to communicate on there again under Barry Littleton. If you go to my YouTube, there's a lot of information there. Please check out the playlist. There's about 360 videos there. They're short,
Good
but
amount, man. They're good.
they're to the point. And yeah, and help me beat that shadow ban. Kind of sucks.
And then your email for anybody who wants to
Oh,
services from you.
oh, thanks, Drago. Barry Littleton 13, Barry Littleton 13 at gmail.com. Send me an email and I will get back with you ASAP.
Oh man, it was a freaking pleasure, man.
Oh man, thank you for having me on, brother. It's been my pleasure, man.
All right, as I start to close this chapter of our journey through the portal to another dimension, conversations about past lives, the secret space program, the nature of consciousness and reality, extraterrestrial life reminds us that we are not alone in the universe. Our cosmic brothers and sisters are awaiting us for make that contact and to wake up from the veil of forgetfulness that has been cast over our eyes to block the truth of this holographic reality. But fear not, for our journey is far from its conclusion. The portal lingers, its energies pulsating with anticipation for the next chapter in our cosmic saga. Stay tuned for the sequel, where deeper mysteries await and the cosmic narrative unfolds. Please subscribe now and become a companion on this interstellar expedition with me as we jump through different portals to the unknown. The universe's script is ever evolving, and you won't want to miss a single episode. As I begin to slowly close the portal and the chapter, remember, Portal to Another Dimension is not just a podcast, it's your portal to the unknown. Until next time, portal jumpers, keep your compasses steady, your curiosity burning, and your spirit attuned to the whispers and frequency of the cosmos. This is Drago, your navigator, bidding you farewell for now. Until next time, may the mysteries of the cosmos continue to beckon you into the unknown until the next cosmic chapter unfolds. The portal to another dimension is now closed. Until next time, everyone.